Deputy Speaker.
As we resumed, I recognize the member for Chaguanas East.
Thank you very much, Mr. Deputy Speaker, for this opportunity to join the debate. Let me begin, as with my other colleagues, in congratulating the Honorable Leader of the Opposition, Mrs. Kamla Persad-Bissessar, for what can I describe as an erudite, sterling, and extensive and very impactful presentation. Mr. Deputy Speaker, I wish to also pay tribute to all of my colleagues who have spoken. They have spoken outstandingly, purpose-driven, with fire and strategic futurism. Madam Speaker, the 2019 budget can only be described in a few lines by me. A turn for the worst, an economic calamity, a transcript of incompetence, the pauperization of the middle class and working class. And for those who would like, I know that some of my colleagues on the other side read extensively. I would also like to recommend for reading, in terms of the working class, a book by James Carville, and it is entitled, "It is the Middle Class Stupid." This budget can also be described as a statistical manipulation, and I will show that later on. A plan to take this country from prosperity to poverty. This budget, and I mean no pun on anyone's height, was long on narrative, but short on productive measures. Mr. Deputy Speaker, last night I was listening to the Member of Parliament from Moruga Tableland, the Minister in the Ministry of Education, and I thought that today I would have had the benefit of listening to my very good friend, the Member for Arima, the Minister of Education, so I may respond to some of the things that he would have said. But last night when I listened to the Member of Parliament and the MP for Moruga Tableland, and as I said, a minister in the Ministry of Education, and many times when he speaks or when he goes out to functions, he would have been attending functions in the tertiary sector, and I came to believe that he was the person who was, in a sense, under the supervision of the senior person, would be looking after the tertiary sector. Mr. Deputy Speaker, unfortunately, in about his over 30 minutes of presentation, not did I even hear one word about tertiary education in Trinidad and Tobago. You know, in the words of a former Prime Minister, I could almost echo in, and hearing it in echo saying, how are you going to do that? You shouldn't do that. But I also want to indicate to my friend, the MP for Moruga Tableland, when you stand with the Minister of Education and the Ministry of Education, and if you had the opportunity to speak, you must speak something extensively or under the supervision of your senior minister. And I am reminded, Mr. Deputy Speaker, I had the privilege of attending one of the very distinguished secondary schools in this country, Presentation College San Fernando. And if any of my teachers were listening to, if that were me, and they were listening to me with that presentation, I would have been called and summoned and told directly, please write the following lines. The way of the transgressor is exceedingly difficult, especially under these trying circumstances. Mr. Deputy Speaker, I say all of this to indicate, I say, well, is that a secondary school thing? All right. So I want to also recommend for my colleague and also for my colleague, the Minister of Education, based on what I'm going to be saying this evening, there's a book I came across, and I think it's a very worthy book to read. especially in the context of this budget. It is entitled Universities and Colleges as Economic Drivers, Measuring Higher Education's Role in Economic Development by Lane and John Stone. That's just a little bit of reading homework for my friends on the other side. Mr. Deputy Speaker, I now want to turn to some comments on the budget, and particularly with respect to some of my colleagues on the other side who came to the House. With respect to the economy as presented by the Minister of Finance, we noticed, and some of my colleagues on this side and the Honourable Member for Siparia would have so made mention in a contribution, that the structure of reporting on GDP was changed in 2017, with the CSO adopting the international standard for industrial classification, ISIC revised number 4. And it made mention on all my colleagues, and I just want to repeat it because it's important for us to understand. I did say that the budget had some statistical gymnastics in it. And therefore, I just want to remind the national population and all of us here that 7.3% percentage growth in the manufacturing sector, as stated by the Minister of Finance, really be attributable to the traditional manufacturing sector, is it, or is it not? I also wish to point out that the Honourable Minister of Finance made mention of the fact that the inflation rate was about 1%. But what the Honourable Minister failed to mention was the index of retail prices upon which the inflation rate is based was rebased to 2015. What this means is that the closer you are to the base year, 2015, the lower the inflation rate can be expected. Mr. Deputy Speaker, I think it is important for me as well, in the context of unemployment, to make the following comment. The Honourable Minister of Finance indicated in the budget speech that employment was around 5.1% or 5%. But what I want to also indicate, and which we should have been advised on, I suppose that's one of the reasons why we on this side will make mention of some of the things, is the alarming percentage of youth unemployment in this country. Mr. Deputy Speaker, let me place on the records that for the age group 15 to 29 years, based on the third quarter of 2017 data, the unemployment rate in this category was or is 28.2%. This is very important because I remember in the 1986 period, one of the programs, as it was a World Bank funded program that started in that time, was really in response to this high level of youth unemployment. And it is what gave rise to the Youth Training Employment Partnership Program Limited, YTEP. I will speak about the GATE program in more detail, but in terms of the context of the discussions with the Minister of Finance and the budget speech, I think one of the things that we'll want to look at, and I'm sure my colleague, the Minister of Education, will take note of this, is because of the new GATE policies. Not only have we seen a reduction in the amount of students accessing tertiary education, but also in terms of the amount of unemployment that has arisen as a result of those GATE policies. Mr. Deputy Speaker, since my colleague, the former Minister of Education and member for Caroni East, when he spoke yesterday, he spoke substantially in response to the member for St. Joseph, Minister of Health. And since he does not have an opportunity to respond at all, and maybe I am not having an opportunity to respond to the Minister of Education, I only was able to do that to one of them. I think I just want to place on the record for my colleague, on his behalf really, because the Honourable Minister of Education, MP for Arima, at a certain point in time, when the Speaker said that you now have 10 minutes to...
Members, again, please, let's recognize Standing Order 53. I'm getting some slight overtones. Proceed, member.
Thank you very much. One of the things that the speaker indicated to my colleague was that you now have 10 minutes left in your presentation. And the member for Karen East stood up and said, well, now I will go on to my achievements. I have 10 minutes to talk about that. And the member for Arima indicated to him over the table, you don't need 10 minutes, you need less than that, 2 minutes. I want to ask the member for Arima, Minister of Education, how many minutes will you take to tell us your accomplishments in this country? And I say that with no disrespect to my very good friend. In terms of education as well, and the comments that have been made, and I'm sure we're not hearing, I'm so happy that my colleague from Labre is no longer coughing like she did yesterday, and therefore you're feeling much better today. But I think one of the statements I prize and I cherish that you made yesterday when you were talking mostly about your constituency, and I have it quoted here. Children's education comes first, and we must do everything to ensure it is not disrupted. Mr. Deputy Speaker, my colleague from Labre spoke glowingly about the number of jobs that will be created by the dry docking facility at Labre. But I asked the question, if you came to this house and told the country that children's education is a priority and we should do everything to maintain it, why did you stand in silence and allow the NESC Center in your constituency to be closed down at Palaseco? And the member for Point Fortin, similarly, the NESC Center is closed down. And the member for Moruga Tableland, who is a minister in that Ministry of Education that has responsibility for the National Energy Skills Center, has been closed down. And we are talking today about the children's education and the future of this country. I want to ask the question, and you could go back to the budget statement. We are boasting about 13,000 jobs, and I have all the figures I'm going to tell you about it just now. In fact, when you disaggregate the budget speech, you will see they're saying that in all of the projects that the government is going to be embarking upon, they will create 39,700 jobs in this country. And I want to ask the question, when those jobs will come on stream? And in respect to the dry docking facility, why? The People's National Movement boasted that in 2004, you launched the University of Trinidad and Tobago, and the Minister of Education must stand in the gap for UTT and tell this country why you are boasting about a marine facility and Panamax from the Panama Canal, but you said absolutely nothing about the UTT Maritime Campus. Why? Why? How are you going to build human capital development? And that is page 96 of your budget, building human capital. And I'll deal with that more extensively. Mr. Deputy Speaker, I want to also indicate that in my comments about people who are visiting, members that is, ministers of government, we had yesterday the Minister for Trade and Industry come to the Parliament, and you know, when you listen to some of these presentations, the man in the street don't have the same view that we hear here, you know. When you hear the delivery of some of the persons on the other side, the members that is, you feel this country is running nice and glorious and it's running on oil. Everything is good. Go and tell the man outside on the pavement who want to meet people on the pavement, find out where they're getting food from. You think you could tell the Petrochem workers that? You think you could tell the TSTT workers that? Now we've seen a denial of that statement. Thousands of persons, over 35,000 people have lost their job. Dr. Tiwari indicated they said it might be closer to 50,000. What is the PNM's job strategy for the people of this country? Go drive truck in Canada. Go to Hire Pro. But I'm going to come to that just now. I want to tell you about something else, Mr. Deputy Speaker. I'm sorry if I'm waving the document. The minister came here yesterday of Trade and Industry, and I want to quote from Hansard. The bespoke tailoring program has gotten off to a great start, and there was great desk thumping from next door. And 28 participants are expected to benefit from this. This is diversification now coming alive under this government. Mr. Deputy Speaker, there's a tailoring course. Page 58 of the last budget, the 2018 budget, has 5 lines on the top left-hand corner that spoke about a tailoring course, a certificate in tailoring. And you know where they say that certificate in tailoring is going to be offered at? The John S. Donaldson UTT campus, which is called the Creativity Campus. Mr. Deputy Speaker, I'm going to ask some questions now on the bespoke tailoring program because I want to know who has responsibility. Is the Minister of Trade coming here and she has responsibility for a tailoring program? Or is it the Minister of Education, the MP for Arima, who has responsibility for UTT and MIC? Why was this program moved from the UTT to the MIC? Who is conducting it? How much money you get? Is it accredited? When the people finish it? Mr. Deputy Chairman, Speaker, I am passionate about this. You know why? We had tailoring in this country for years. In fact, some of the people came from abroad. In the days of indentureship, came here as tailors and seamstress. But I want to ask certain questions about our tailoring program. And I'll talk about the other things just now. I want to ask, as I indicated, how much money was spent on that tailoring program. The minister said that the program got off to a great start with 28 persons. Mr. Deputy Speaker, this program started with 40 persons. What has happened? What is your dropout rate? Why you had a dropout rate? What is the cost of the per person in this program? Is it $160,000? Is this gate funded? If it is not gate funded, is the government of Trinidad and Tobago subsidizing this? What is the relationship with the Ministry of Trade and Industry and the Ministry of Education in the government of Trinidad and Tobago with respect to bespoke tailoring? Somebody tell me don't say what I said last time. All I say is for people, some people might not understand what is bespoke, but I'll tell you what it is not. It is not bicycle, spoke, and wheel. Bespoke tailoring is a different concept. But I wanted to ask the question as well. Could we find out the question? Could we ask the question now? Could we get an answer to the question? At what level did they say that this course was going to be pitched at? Is it level 4? And what is the role of the National Training Agency in developing national occupational standards of competence? And what they found is that this course is at level 2. It is not a level 4 course. It is not accredited. And therefore, I want to ask the other questions. For whom are we supporting this kind of initiative? Is it a select few people? And I don't want to get people's name involved in this, but all I want to indicate to us is that it is my view that there needs to be a full investigation into this tailoring program. And as I'm on that, the contribution of the Minister of Trade and Industry, I want to also read from the Hansard, with your permission, Mr. Deputy Speaker. She says, the minister says, I'm not afraid to speak of it. And she was talking about the Fashion TT program. Madam Speaker, this project is under review. There has been some budgetary constraints with UTT. It is a joint project between UTT and also Fashion TT. And there are many possibilities and so on. Well, I want to ask the following questions. This program is being conducted at the John S. Donaldson Technical Institute. The PNM has budgeted, the Ministry of Education has budgeted $2 million for improvement works at the John Donaldson campus. $2 million for improvement works to this program? I want to ask a question. Is there a cabinet approval for this project? Secondly, has the contract been awarded? If yes, who is the contractor? Is this a multi-year project? If yes, what is the total project cost over the period? Mr. Deputy Speaker, did UTT borrow money to award this contract? The Honorable Minister of Education, I don't know if he's in charge of this project. And he must tell us whether there's a family feud that is taking place between the Ministry of Education and the Ministry of Trade and Industry. If yes, who authorized this loan? Mr. Deputy Speaker, the minister also spoke extensively about Panamax. You know what Panamax really is? What Panamax really is the new Panama Canal that is really enabled to access very large ocean-going vessels. And the minister indicated in talking about the amount of investment opportunities and jobs and so on in Trinidad and Tobago, that everything now is the dry docking facility at Labrie. But you know, I have a document in here, and I just make reference to it. It is written by one Susan Shepard from the Business Guardian in 19th of April 2018. And what she's saying is what we knew in the cabinet, the previous cabinet. You want to have all of these extensive dry docking facilities. Have you dredged your ports? Can you accept these vessels? Do you have equipment to handle these large vessels? So you know what's going to happen? You're going to be like you're in a bus stop at Labre. These vessels passing up and down and you're watching them. What is the training facilities you are going to be developing? What do you feel? Because I read and you read, and the member for Arima indicated just now, there's what I said about the lines is a thing from QRC. But we read the same book. Because I read and you read, Caribbean Lands by John Macpherson, it said it had a natural deep water sheltered harbor at Labre. Does that make you viable? Does that make you profitable? You have to do the groundwork. Don't come and tell us about no pie in the sky project here. You know, people come to this parliament, to this August chamber in the month of October and beat their chests. I tell you, when you listened yesterday, you would have thought that everything is hunky-dory in this country. So many jobs will create 10,000. I have the list here now. I have the list here. New dry dock and shipbuilding, ship repair facility, Labre. Indirect jobs, 13,000. Direct jobs, 2,700. Investment, US 500 million. And when you listen to that, you ask yourself the question, what is happening to all those workers at Petrotrin and who have been laid off and ArcelorMittal and all the rest? You think they could take this budget speech and say, listen, I want you to give me a moratorium on my loan. I want you to trust me with gas for my vehicle. I want you to trust me with CDAP. I can't need the tablets and so on. I would need the medication. And they say, well, where are we getting the money from? I say, look, the money coming here. Again, I work just now. I'll be one of the 13,000. This budget speech is not a sine qua non for jobs. Because I'll tell you why. I'll tell you why. In Labre, sorry. In Labre as well. In Labre, the very same Labre we're talking about. We have heard about investments in Labre. I asked the question, and I am sorry the Honorable Prime Minister is not here. Sorry? Yeah. What has happened? What has happened to the US $200 million plywood factory? The Honorable Prime Minister must be careful on who's saying, tell him to say what. Don't get set up. I know the people in this project. And I'll tell you what, you know what is the name of the company? Chemtech Limited. You know what I said he was doing down there? Fertilizers, plastic resins, roof tiles, veneer board, oriented strand board, fertilizers, all kind of thing like that. And you know what? You can't even see the ply much as you see the wood. No plywood. Nothing happening. And you have the member for Labre in hope and in awe that all of this investment, I want to tell my friend, the member for Labre, don't get too excited yet, you know. All of these are just words. You haven't seen the deeds as yet. And as we say that, we're asking about the amount of people to work in these various things. I mean, I have a list here of all the investments. The honorable member, the Minister of Works and Transport came here this morning, and he boasted about the new airport, that is, or the extension of the airport in Tobago, but he did not make any mention about jobs. He did not even say when it's going to start. He might say it's going to finish before 2020. A lot of the things we are seeing here are due to be completed in 2020. They didn't start yet. You know how long project management takes? But that's the nature of the thing. But you know what? While some people come in here and beat their chest and talk glibly about all of these success stories, there are plenty of people outside there with chest pains, you know. They don't know where the next meal coming from. Mr. Deputy Speaker, I just want to indicate that the PNM regime has spent $156 billion in the last 3 years. $156 billion has been spent by the PNM government in the last 3 years. And what do we see for that? Education is failing. Crime is at an all-time high. Roads are listen, I am a member of parliament, and you know what is that to do? I just got to call 623 MEND. You know what MEND is? Fixing pothole. And we're glad for it because we have seen no road paving. But I am telling you, I drive on these roads every day like you. I've never seen so much pothole. As a matter of fact, up to yesterday, I drive by Kelly Village going up to Piaco. I thought my left side cradle would have break out. Yeah, at least if you can't pave it, fix it now, man. So you'll reduce the hardships on the motoring public. Roads are crumbling. Flooding is rampant. life-saving medication sometimes, and that is not I saying that, and I'm not saying this against the member for St. Joseph. This is what people are saying in the newspapers. When you go, I stood up in a pharmacy the other day and heard people asking for certain things, and they tell me not there, and they ask, well, why, when will you get it? They don't know. But we have to be careful. What's going to happen to the Augustus Long Hospital with pediatrician workers who depend on this and their families? Well, we want to hear about that. We're hearing about the Couva facility now. The Couva facility is now going to be a joint venture between the government of Trinidad and Tobago and UWI. Where is UWI going to get the money to participate in this? Who's going to pay the staff? When are you going to be paid? They are going to be paid? Are they going to be paid from the monies that you are charging people to access that facility? The cost of living is rising. If you don't believe I am saying that, read the article by Deloitte and Touche, and they are saying more jobs will be lost because of the taxes that are going to be placed on us, the property tax that are coming. And also they said the increase in the standard of living with a number of people who are going to lose their jobs. I didn't say that. I could give you the quotation. Read Deloitte and Touche. Of that 156 billion, the PNM has racked up 26 billion in budget deficits. Mr. Deputy Speaker, I now want to turn, time going very fast, so I now want to turn to the section on building human capital. You know, and I'm going to Singapore just now. You know what pains me? As a former Minister of Tertiary Education, and the person who is now the Minister of Finance, he was my boss. He was the Minister of Science, Technology, and Tertiary Education. You worked on the PNM? And they fired me too.
They fired him.
Members.
Since you raised at the PNM, fire me too.
Members.
But I will tell you something. Since you raised,
Members, address the chair. Address the chair.
I want to tell you.
Leader of the House, please.
I want to tell my friend from Aruka Moloni, my very good friend. Yes, I work under the PNM. And I kept my job until there was an instruction to fire me. But I'll tell you what. When I was fired at 10 to 4 on the Friday before Mother's Day, I cried like a baby to go home and tell my wife, I can't mind you anymore. And you know what my wife told me?
Like petrol.
Mr. Deputy Speaker, she said, greater things are in store for you.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
And I'll tell you and I'll tell the country today, almost like a testimony, when I was offered to be Minister of Science, Technology, and Tertiary Education. I want to congratulate and compliment, and I owe a great deal of gratitude to Mrs. Kamla Prasad for asking me to be a part of a cabinet. When I went to the ministry, which was that time was located just south of Long Circular Mall, and I went into the office, the permanent secretary came and said, Minister Karim, as a minister, you can ask me to outfit your office. What do you want? I say, permanent secretary, she's not retired, nice lady. I say, you could change what you want. I say, but that chair, don't move that chair from this office. She says, can I ask you why? I said, yes. That is the chair that the minister fired me from. And I want to sit on that chair.
Vengeance of Moko.
I heard this morning from Tobago East. I almost collected the offering after Tobago East talk this morning. Tobago. Well, all right.
And they say that's
Members,
Mr. Deputy Speaker,
listen.
I will be.
Please, members, I know we just resumed from lunch, and let's keep the decorum in the House. Member, again, address the chair, and again, other members, please, the crosstalk. Proceed.
Mr. Deputy Speaker, thank you very much for the protection, but my friend is a very good friend. I just want to come, before I come to CVQ, she likes to hear those words. I just want to quote from a document that we were given here a few days ago. And I'm quoting this document to show you the hypocrisy of the PNM when they speak. And they don't know what they're talking about. They write it in the book and they do something different. So I want to quote. Mr. Deputy Speaker, with your permission, Vision 2030. We haven't reached 2020 yet. So we're going to 2020, and then we're going to 2030. So we haven't reached yet. But I want to tell you what it is. Chapter 3 of that book is entitled, Putting People First, Education. Sounds familiar? Sounds like we care, we're ready, we read, we like the country, we are patriots. Like me, I'm a patriot too. On page 48, Mr. Deputy Speaker, I quote, the education and training sector. Listen to this. I'm reading it slowly for those who are listening and looking on television. The education and training sector must be relevant and capable of producing individuals who can learn independently, think strategically, solve problems, and innovate. Are you serious? Are you serious? You say one thing and you do something else. And I'll tell you why I'm saying that. I'll tell you why Nigel Henry, on the 8th of September 2018, in his poll, what he found is that there was a lack of confidence in the education system. And I'm going to read it with your permission, Mr. Deputy Speaker. The dramatic collapse of public confidence in the education system between the last year and this year fell from 43% to 31%, a 12% decline. And it further goes on to say, and that may be as a result of the subsidy cut in the GATE program, which has soured many students and their families. So on the one hand, the Vision 2020 and 2030, and that's some Nigel Henry, solution by simulation, it's a poll in the Express. I can give you the code. I can give you the date. I can quote the source. But I want to tell you about how I find the hypocrisy is perpetuated. Mr. Deputy Speaker, I want to tell you that in spite of saying building human capital, and if you go to page 96, at the top of page 96 of this budget, you will see the headline is building human capital. And the next page, a whole page of 11 lines are dedicated to what? The tertiary sector, of which 3 lines. The first paragraph on page 97 speaks about GATE and help. And the other 8 lines entirely to UTT, which I'll deal with just now. But I want to tell you about the hypocrisy because I just can't say something and don't substantiate what I'm saying. Mr. Deputy Speaker, I want to now identify the cuts that have taken place under this government in terms of building human capital. CXC examinations, 10 million cut. YTEP, 10 million cut. NTA, 9 million cut. Salaries and COLA, 9 million. Contract employment, 5.5 million. Short-term employment, 4.6 million. The higher education loan program that has been spoken of so much, they have raised to $37,000 a year for local institutions and $75,000 for regional institutions. This government has cut the help program by $3.7 million. And I want to talk about textbook rental management unit. That has been cut by $2.6 million. Mr. Deputy Chairman, as I speak, let me just complete and tell you that the amount of cuts that I have just, and these are just a few that I have just listed, the amount of cuts in the 2019 budget amounts to $70 million for the tertiary sector and institutions. Even the Tobago Technology Center that was spoken about this morning by the member for Tobago East, you cut that and all. But I will deal with Tobago separately because I want to offer some solutions and some suggestions for my colleagues to consider. So, Mr. Deputy Speaker, I was talking about the textbook unit. And I found it very strange that on the day that the budget was being presented, the 1st of October, an advertisement was placed in the newspaper. And I'm now going into the remit of my colleague, the former Minister of Education, because he would not have any opportunity to say what I'm saying. And I want to bring it to the notice of the national community. This advertisement, dated Monday, October the 1st, 2018, is entitled Ministry of Education, Learning Materials and Textbook Review. And this notice came out asking for persons, publishers, and authors to submit their textbook for review for primary school, secondary school. Mr. Deputy Speaker, there are a few questions I would like to ask. and I'm sure my colleague, the member for Arima, will want to take note of when he is responding. Who are the members of this textbook evaluation committee? In each content area, that is going to make a determination of the suitability of the CSEC and CAPE, as well as the primary schools. Secondly, Mr. Deputy Speaker, what is the role of the textbook rental unit, and how is this process being managed by the new procurement board and the new procurement legislation? What is the role of EFCL in this process? Is this unit doing the procurement? EFCL? How is this linked to the laptop purchases? If we are buying books, what will be the laptops used for? And we are hearing about laptops and 50 million and so on, and the amount of laptops. And I did say on the last occasion, and I am just repeating or paraphrasing what the member for Arima, Minister of Education, would have indicated. These laptops will be left in the schools. And as it were, it is really an increase in the number of computers that will be available in the computer labs. How many schools, as I ask now, even in terms of the presence of these new learning materials, how many schools are accessing these materials? What is the annual cost of this rental facility? What is the condition of these books in these schools? Are they being used by the teachers? Or as I can tell you from my own experience and my own site, I taught at Carpechama Senior Comprehensive School for many years, and many of these books find themselves on the floors of schools. Who is monitoring them? Taxpayers' dollars wasting away. And what you do sometimes is you accept these books with a change in one paragraph, and there's a new edition, a new cost. This must stop. If we are talking about 21st century learning, we must go into e-learning in a very significant way. Mr. Deputy Speaker, I can go into the actual expenditure of the Ministry of Education, but there are many things I want to say here, and therefore I will leave some of those figures for another occasion. But in the $17.4 billion of expenditure for the Ministry of Education, have you built one primary school, new one? Have you built one new secondary school? What is the position with the UWI South campus, the Penal DB campus? When we built that facility, when we started construction, it was earmarked for a law faculty. I can tell you from my information that the University of the West Indies was holding discussions to have medical programs being conducted by extension of Mount Hope for MBBS at the Penal DB campus. Now we are hearing that it is going to be conducted at the teaching hospital, at the teaching facility as a part of the Coup Hospital. I want to say something today. I want to commend the former Minister of Health, the member for Barataria San Juan. Every single cabinet note I brought, and the Prime Minister at that time, Mr. Bissessa, agreed to it. And I got the support of my colleague. Every single new hospital you are boasting about has a teaching facility in that hospital. Every single one. And I'm asking now about the Tamana Park, but I'm going to have some questions to the Tamana Park. And I want to, we are looking at all of these persons who have lost their jobs at the University of Trinidad and Tobago. Mr. Deputy Chairman, had $350 million, as they used to say long time, in liquid solid cash, not been transferred to the Tamana Park, you would have not had to lay off one person from the University of Trinidad and Tobago. But you jeopardized the job of hundreds of them. And when you jeopardize the job of hundreds of them, what you start doing now is you start to rehire. And that's what's going to happen in Petro-Trinidad. You get rid of persons, of employees. You get rid of the trade union, and then the real hiring of the boys and the girls and the friends of the parties concerned will take place. Mr. Deputy Chairman, Mr. Deputy Speaker, I just want to make reference to the gate means test. We would have heard from my colleague, the member for Arima, and I'm sure he's going to speak about gate. He cannot come to this parliament and not mention gate, even though he has been presiding with his government over the somewhat closure of the gate. We opened the gate. And you know what happened? I want to tell you, for those who are laughing, they only came into the politics recently. And let me just indicate to you, I have the history. This person here, the member for Chaguanas West, was the Minister of Human and Youth Development and Culture that started with Dr. Tiwari and a committee of which I was a member, called the Dollar for Dollar program. And you know what? Like everything else, they take what we start, they put a little dressing on it and say, die them one, but that's all right. It's for the benefit of the people of this country. So, but I want to tell you something. I want to tell you something. Those, and you know, I am tempted not to respond. He's a good person. He's my partner. But Mr. Deputy Speaker, I want to just tell you, the member for Moruga Tableland, I will forgive him because he's new to the parliament. But I want to say this. The Dollar for Dollar was started under the Pandey administration, the UN. And I want to tell you as well, and I want to say this publicly, under Mrs. Kamla Prasad Bisesa, we had taken no discussion, no decision to interfere with the GATE program. None. And you know what we are doing? We were efficiency in the system. For the first time, we were getting back millions of dollars from training providers. And as you talk about UWI and the new facility in Couva, I want to ask the Minister of Education and his colleague to tell this country, and when he speaks to tell this parliament, do you still owe the University of the West Indies and other tertiary institutions in this country for GATE financing? Do you still owe them money? Because many of them had to go out of business. Many of them had to stop their programs. It's not life as before. And therefore, the question I want to ask my colleague, and I want to put the Minister of Education on notice. In case anybody wants to dodge this question when we have normal parliamentary days, I put the Minister of Education on notice that I'll be filing a question under the Freedom of Information Act. And I want the country to know how many students have accessed 100% of GATE, how many students have had to pay 25%, and how many students have had to pay 50%. That is going to come under the Freedom of Information. You must tell the country the impact and the effect of the GATE program. How many were disenfranchised from their tertiary education? Mr. Deputy Speaker, I'm seeing where people are taking credit for St. George's University. The bold statement, we will not be financing St. George's University again. St. George's University GATE financing for medicine programs started under the People's National Movement. And we were spending $42 million a year to send people there. And therefore we said we took a decision under Mrs. Bisesa's guidance to take that money and build the South Teaching Hospital at San Fernando. The San Fernando General. And we had the chairman here, Dr. Bodo. Listen, one thing you can't fault the UNC for, we had a vision, we had a strategy. We had a strategy. We had knowledge of the system. And therefore, I want to tell people who are making comments, when you want to make your comments, come here, but make sure you don't go before the Privileges Committee. Mr. Chairman, Mr. Deputy Speaker, I want to ask the Minister of Education. What I am holding here in my hand is the recommendation or a series of recommendations with respect to the GATE program. The Minister of Education, Member for Arima, had established a GATE task force. And I want to ask the member, first of all, before I get on to the real substance, we are facing in this country an aging population. This morning I listened to my friend from Tobago East. You have now said to people in this country, if you reach 50 years and more, you fund your own education. So I'm asking the Minister of Education, MP for Arima, why are you putting still among your responsibilities and my colleague from Maria Tibulan could substantiate that, why are you still putting on your responsibilities lifelong learning policy formulation? You are very, you know, in some countries it might describe, and some places, as a very contradictory statement in different terms. But lifelong learning is...
Remember, your initial time has elapsed. You have an additional 10 minutes. You care to avail yourself? Members, care to avail yourself. Additionally, you are bordering on a very thin line with regards to your documentation and displaying it. I know that, you may not be as conscious of it as I'm aware, but please be careful in terms of your display.
Because I am always reminded that there's a very thin line between bravery and stupidity. I would not like to border on the latter. But these are just my speaking notes, with your permission. And I just made mention of those who have turned 50. I want to ask the Honorable Minister of Education in his response to you, Mr. Deputy Speaker, to tell us whether the GATE programs that are being financed now are in alignment with the National Economic Development Strategy of Trinidad and Tobago. And if it is not, why is it not? You told us that as one of your recommendations. I want to also read for you. Effective August 2017, only institutions and programs accredited by the ACTT will be funded. I don't know if many people understand the difference between registration of an institution and accreditation of an institution. And therefore, what are we saying? What are the consequences of this action? Do you know now so many persons have lost their jobs? I want to ask the Minister of Education, my colleague, to revisit these recommendations. Because what you are saying and what the task force is saying to you, which you have accepted, is that TVET programs, technical vocational education training programs, will only be funded for level 3 and above. There are many persons who have lost their job. What about level 1 and level 2? In this country of education, this is referred to as the articulation for matriculation. Why is it so difficult to understand that? And therefore, I want to ask the question to the Honorable Minister. What has happened, Honorable Minister of Education, to the education savings bonds that you promised that you will bring? Minister of Education, Member for Arima, what has happened to the National Education Savings Fund that you have promised to bring? And finally, in this context of recommendations, the task force recommended and you accepted, the government of Trinidad and Tobago will consider fiscal incentives to encourage insurance companies and credit unions to invest in the development of education savings products. Where are these? That is why I told you, you say one thing and you do something else, or you don't do it at all. Mr. Deputy Speaker, in watching my time seriously, I was going to deal with some matters with respect to ICT. Well, I will mention CVQ. And my friend always asks about CVQ. It means Caribbean Vocational Qualification, which has marketability and portability throughout CARICOM and has been accepted by CARICOM. And I am proud to say that I am one of the architects of this. But you know what? I want to also say I'm an architect. I am an architect of the first UTT aviation campus in this country. Now, my friends on this side, they have learned the slogan so well.
Yes, ma'am.
Members,
No,
please. No, listen, members. You have my attention. Member for Shigona cease. All right, so you proceed, and I will deal with the other members.
Thank you very much, Mr. Deputy Speaker. I don't know why they joined the chorus, but it's something that I hold close to my heart. But I just want to tell you, as we speak, Mr. Deputy Speaker, do you believe that we have 100 students registered? If you could give me the time. 100 students registered in 3 programs at UTT Aviation.
6 more minutes.
As a matter of fact, you know what we have there? We have the certificate in aviation technology. We have the bachelor's degree in aviation management. And the most recent one is a bachelor's science degree in airworthiness. All of that, over 100 students. And I want to tell you this, and I want to tell the country this. The UTT Aviation Campus, Minister of Education, through you, Mr. Deputy Speaker, will become the flagship of the University of Trinidad and Tobago, of which we are proud. In my very limited time, I just want to deal with Tobago, since my friend spoke about Tobago this morning. We are told that Tobago will have an increase of 1,000 rooms and 2,000 permanent jobs for the Sandals project. We are told about a 198-room facility at the Magdalena, at the international airport. And since my friends are asking about Singapore, I want to make the comparison. And I'll tell you, if Singapore could do it, Tobago could do it too.
Yes, yes.
And I'll tell you why I'm saying that. I deliberately wrote down the area, and you might want to be interested in this too. Trinidad and Tobago has an area square mile of 1,980. Tobago alone by itself is 116 square miles. Barbados is 166 square miles, 50 miles more. And guess what? Singapore is just 99 square miles more. 265 square miles. Mr. Deputy Speaker, if you ever had the opportunity to go to Singapore, grasp it immediately. You will see what a small country, and we are talking about a tourism island, Tobago. I want to offer a suggestion here today. My colleague from Princeton made mention yesterday about Prime Minister Mia Mottley and what she's doing in Barbados. And other colleagues also made reference to Barbados. I want to ask the Honourable Prime Minister and the MPs of Tobago East, well, I'm not seeing West here as well, to consider accessing that kind of facility, to have every single human being on Tobago in the island trained. Barbados has taken $30 million annually for 4 years to train from lawyer to taxi driver. You know why? They understand the importance of the tourism economy. And therefore, we should do likewise. But as I wind down and close, I had so many things I want to say, but this is a quotation I must leave with you. We are talking about Vision 2020 and Vision 2030. Mr. Deputy Speaker, we will not be here when the 22nd century arrives. What are we doing for the future of those who will live and outlive us? I ask the question today for the government of Trinidad and Tobago to take notice of. A child born today, what will that child be like in 2050? What will be that child like who lives on to 2200? Are we seriously thinking about the future of the country? Are we being patriotic? I am telling you here, what we are going to find ourselves equipped with is what I describe as a useless class because we're not projecting the jobs of the future. Read Professor Linda Grattan. The future of work is already here, the shift. Read Michael Furtick, The Reputation Economy. Just keep on reading, and you'll get to Singapore. I want to tell you as I conclude, I want to make reference of my constituents.
2 more minutes, member.
4 minutes?
Two.
First of all, I want to ask the minister, the member for Point Fortin, to pass on the answer in the Hansard to the member for Port of Spain, North, St. Anne's West. I'm still waiting on the police station in Enterprise. I want to talk about I want to ask the Minister of Education, he promised to go on a walk with me. Open the Egypt Oasis Primary School now. Open the Dash CCC Center now. And to make sure that you remove the bottleneck around the roundabout. Mr. Deputy Speaker, as I conclude, since this PNM government assumed office, the poor have become poorer and more vulnerable. Since this PNM government assumed office, the middle class has become the working class poor, in the middle class triple as I indicated to you. Since this PNM government assumed office, the elite has become the ultra-elite. The divide between the haves and the have-nots is widening. Our national wealth is being transferred from the poor and middle class to the elite and ultra-elite. Our national patrimony is being auctioned off to the friends and family of the PNM, and so on and so on. Mr. Deputy Speaker, I want to tell you, in the words of Dinesh D'Souza, a New York bestseller, he wrote the book, Death of a Nation. The PNM, in my view, he didn't say this, has turned our country into a welfare state. It's killing the spirit of resolute independence after 56 years. The PNM government reminds us that it is very much organized in much the same way as the plantation by creating political machines and trade patronage, government handouts, in exchange for reliable votes from ethnic blocs. I thank you, Mr. Deputy Speaker.
I recognize the member for St. Anne's.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Speaker, for the opportunity to contribute today to this budget debate and to report on the work of the Ministry of Community Development, Culture and the Arts and what has been happening in the constituency of St. Anne's East. At this juncture, I'd like to thank my constituents who have me here today and who have supported me to be their Member of Parliament. And I want to recognize the work and the foresight and the planning of the Minister of Finance, the Minister of Planning and Development, and ultimately the Prime Minister who leads this PNM government on and has allowed us to contribute to our country in this way. Mr. Deputy Speaker, the Ministry of Community Development, Culture and the Arts has been allocated $435,350,000 for fiscal 2018-2019. And I will go now into the details of what has done in 2018 and how we are investing that in 2019. However, I must at this time comment on what went before, because I think it's important to look at some of the things that were said by the member for Chaguanas East as he contributed. And I will leave a lot of what he said with respect to the Education Ministry to the Minister of Education, who will deal with those issues when he contributes to the budget debate. But I think I must say that it is passing strange that all of Trinidad and Tobago's problems seem to have started only 3 years ago, according to the opposition. Potholes only started 3 years ago, apparently. When I heard Caroni East and Tabaquite contribute, flooding seemed to...
Proceed.
Flooding seemed to only have started 3 years ago. I remember being in secondary school. I remember in the last 5 years preceding this government's tenure, how much flooding was taking place, all in Santa Cruz, all in San Juan, all over the country, but only it seems 3 years ago flooding started. Crime seemed to only started 3 years ago. Obviously, there was no crime, no need for a state of emergency. All of that wasn't happening until this time, it seems. And what is even worse, I remember my parents telling me about free tertiary education way back when they were going to school. But it seems as though it is only the UNC that opened the gates. Because I know that free tertiary education was a policy of the PNM government long before dollar for dollar came into being. So I don't know why it seems that suddenly the opposition has all of the answers to the country's problems. Everybody knows exactly what to do. And it seems even that when they're speaking, they're reading from the manifesto, it looks like, the 2015 manifesto. But I want to tell them that the population heard that already. And let me tell you something. In 2015, when it was hearing it on the TV, you were hearing it on the radio, you would see it on social media, when they heard it the first time, they were not impressed. Saying it over and over now will not make it more believable. I'm speaking in the future tense. We will do. The country said definitively in 2015 that you will not do. And no matter how you say it now, the country knows that actions speak louder than words. UNC, the country knows you now. They know what you did and they know what you didn't do. And they know that you didn't have the best interest of all at heart. I'm hearing Chaguanas East speaking about the vision and the strategy. They know, this country knows that your vision and your strategy did not extend to all of us. They know that the PNM cares about them. They know that the worst day under the PNM government is better than the best day under the UNC. So, Madam Speaker, Mr. Deputy Speaker, now to the substance of my contribution. With respect to the Ministry of Community Development, Culture and the Arts, it is important for the citizens and the population to understand the scope of what the ministry does and how the investment of $435 million benefits every citizen. I heard the Minister of Social Development stand and speak about over $4 billion in grants, and I want to elaborate on what the Ministry of Community Development, Culture and the Arts also offers in terms of benefits to our citizens. Because you see, Mr. Deputy Speaker, it is easy to understand and to align the functions of other ministries in some ways. When you hear the Ministry of Health, you know it deals with body and mind. But when you hear the Ministry of Community Development, Culture and the Arts, it's not always apparent that we deal with emotional health. When you hear the Ministry of Social Development, you think immediately of the physical needs of the indigent. But when you hear the Ministry of Community Development, Culture and the Arts, it deals with emotional needs of the entire population. The Ministry of Education, dealing with academic development. The Ministry of Community Development, Culture and the Arts, dealing with artistic development, socialization of communities, and cultural development. The Ministry of Energy and Energy Industries, dealing with exploitation of natural resources, whereas the Ministry of Community Development, Culture and the Arts, dealing with exploitation of cultural resources. Ministry of Tourism, marketing our cultural products. Ministry of Community Development, Culture and the Arts, developing our cultural products. As we do all of this, we do it with the vision of resilient, culturally rich communities. And our mandate is three-pronged: promotion of community bonds and problem solving, development of positive attitudes, values, and behaviors, and facilitation of all forms of self-expression. Mr. Deputy Speaker, let me say at this point that it is critical that Trinidad and Tobago does introspection and considers the type of citizen we are creating, the all-round citizen. It is one thing to think about our physical health and another thing to think about our academic achievements. It is something else to consider what are the morals, the ethics, the values of the people we create. Because we cannot be a first world country if we are creating third world citizens. And as we go towards that goal and that dream of being a first world country, we have to consider more carefully if we are creating citizens who are involved in teamwork, who are positive, who are supportive, honest, who build up our country instead of pulling it down. And this is the focus of the Ministry of Community Development, Culture and the Arts. As we do this, we have a number of delivery arms, and I'm briefly going to explain what our delivery arms are so that the citizens can understand all of the moving parts that come together to achieve our purpose. So we have the Community Development Division, and this is the division responsible for community festivals, skills training, and interactions with community groups. We have the Museum, responsible for the administration and the programs of the National Museum and Art Gallery. We have the Best Village Unit, that unit which administers the Prime Minister's Best Village Trophy program, which is the longest running program in the history of Trinidad and Tobago, having started in 1963. We have the Mediation Department, which runs the Community Mediation Program in over 7 centers nationwide. The Culture Division administers training programs in the arts for different target groups. The national performing entities, the National Steel Symphony Orchestra, the National Philharmonic Orchestra, the National Theatre Arts Company, they present free artistic productions for the benefit of the public, and we'll say more about that coming down. The performance spaces administered by the ministry, the National Academy for the Performing Arts, the Southern Academy for the Performing Arts, Naparima Bowl, and Queen's Hall, all premier performing spaces for staging artistic productions. The project unit, this is the interface between the ministry and the state enterprise which builds and refurbishes community centers. The policy unit handles the development of policies which guide the operations of the ministry. The planning and implementation unit, which oversees the distribution and monitoring of over $3 million in subventions to 14 organizations. The grants unit, which manages the application, vetting, disbursement, and monitoring of grants to organizations and individuals. The NCC, which is the state enterprise that is mandated to make Carnival a viable national, cultural and commercial enterprise. They deal and organize carnival. The National Commission for Self-Help, which provides grants for home repairs, small home repairs, and small community projects. Export centers, which provides advanced skill training for artisans and administers national craft markets. Mr. Deputy Speaker, I have just summarized 14 distinct delivery arms of the Ministry of Community Development, Culture and the Arts, all of which come together to the benefit of the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago. And the whole point of this is to increase the quality of life and the standard of living in communities for community groups, individuals, artists, and families. And these 14 arms work together to deliver value in 10 different areas. And I'm going to go into that to explain, Mr. Deputy Speaker, what we do, what we have done, and how we are moving forward. And we have structured this in a way that people can understand what are the benefits they can get. So, for example, let's deal with the first area of focus. For those looking for entertainment, because that's one of our purposes, providing entertainment. In 2018, the national performing entities, that's the National Steel Symphony Orchestra, National Philharmonic Orchestra, and the National Theatre Arts Company, they provided over 12 productions in 2018. Over 13,000 persons attended these productions. You have classical orchestra music, steel pan music, theatre productions. These events are offered free to the public, and I can tell you the number of families that come out to these events, the number of them that come out and say, we are glad to be able to give our children these type of experiences. And if we had to pay for it, we would not be able to provide that. That is one way of providing family entertainment, positive entertainment. The National Museum exhibited 8 art collections over this year. Again, all free to the public. The ministry also mounts exhibitions for national days and festivals, which are educational in nature. We do them in Trinity Mall, C3, we have also done, in the lobbies of Napa and Sapa, allowing persons not to just celebrate, we have a holiday, but to understand the meaning of the holiday, what is the history of it, and to ensure that our citizens are exposed to that type of educational experience. I want to mention that in the National Museum this year, we ran a virtual pan museum, making use of the technology where you can have that immersive technology, you put on the headset and so on, and you are into a new space where they were exhibiting the history of the pan and all of the development of the pan up to today. And we are working with a group to develop that with the NCC into a virtual carnival museum where we can archive the costumes of every year. Because as you know, Mr. Deputy Speaker, when those costumes are put on display at carnival time, there's no space, really, to hold these costumes where you can have them for posterity and for heritage preservation. So we are using the technology and looking towards that goal of developing a virtual carnival museum that can be an archive for all of the music, the costuming, and all that surrounds carnival so that we can have that and use it for both our locals as well as our tourists to have a look at as years to come. We're still dealing with entertainment, Mr. Deputy Speaker. In the past year, we held 12 community festivals around the country. Areas like Beauséjour in Martin, Point Fortin, Presal, festivals all over the country where the communities had the opportunity to showcase what is important and what is their niche area to the general public. And we held 12 of those throughout the communities in 2018. The Folk Arts Festival and the Best Village Folk Theatre Finals. I want to speak about these because these are new initiatives coming out of the Best Village program, where these theatre arts and the Best Village performances were pulled out into separate festivals, marketed separately. And Mr. Deputy Speaker, let me tell you, there are many people who did not know the type of quality and excellence that resides in the Best Village program. And they were exposed to that this year by those free offerings. And I will tell you, in the Folk Theatre Finals, we offered 2 theatre productions, full theatre productions every night to sold-out audiences. It was free, but they were ticketed, and they came in. No room to fill Napa anymore in Napa for that folk theatre finals. Over 7,000 persons were benefiting from that. And the Folk Arts Festival held in the southern Napa, in Sapa. 10 days of Folk Arts Festival, again, full every night, and audiences of over 5,000 persons being reached. We're speaking entertainment still. We're speaking about Patriotism Month, where we had about 10 activities celebrating our heritage between the time of independence and Republic Day. Over 10 activities, hikes, coastal cleanup, cultural showcases, even an essay competition to get the younger people involved. Over 5,000 participants came out at the different events. The Live at Lunch series, 4 monthly showcases, where 22 developing artists got to perform to audiences in Woodford Square, middle of the day, and we had over 1,000 persons coming in and benefiting from these events. Cultural exchanges with China and India were held. Again, even though these are free events, all free events, these are ticketed, over 2,000 attendees coming in to enjoy this. Mr. Deputy Speaker, with the number of things happening, it was important for us to find a way to share all of these happenings and offerings with the public. And I invite now all the listening public to download our Culture TT app, which has been out and developed for the year, which tracks all of these events and tells you what is happening and where it's happening, how you can get there, so that everybody can have a chance to take part in these free entertainment activities, all given by the Ministry of Community Development, Culture and the Arts. And we also distributed in the newspaper late last year, and look out for your copy coming up this year. In December 2018, we distributed over 68,000 copies, hard copies of the cultural calendar, listing over 571 national events for the public to know what's happening, to plan to be there, and to be a part of these activities. So we invite you to look forward to what's happening coming up in 2018 into 19. Mr. Deputy Speaker, that dealt with entertainment. And now we're talking about training. Who is looking for training? I want to identify what is available free, again, under the Ministry of Community Development, Culture and the Arts. I think the country knows about our community education program, which provides skills training in over 30 areas, marketable areas like sewing, plumbing, landscaping, drapery, small engine repair. Over 30 areas with more than 8,500 persons participating in the 2018 cycle. And I will tell you that even in this cycle, and this has been going on 4 years, there are people who participated this year that said to me they never knew this was taking place. I want you to look on our Facebook, follow us, it's published in the media, in the papers as well, for the 2019 version, where you can be trained in all of these different areas in your community centers, where there are not centers available. They take place in schools, they have taken place in community facilities in churches, all of this for the benefit of our citizenry. Over 240 tutors were employed in giving these courses, where you see a lot of people, both young and old, using it for reskilling and for adding revenue stream to their households. The export centers fits in here by offering advanced level training on some of these courses. So you don't have as many courses offered, but it's the advanced version of them. And they are City and Guilds certified as well. And so we see a lot of people, 380 participants as we speak, are taking part in the advanced level courses at the export centers nationwide. In the area of cultural arts training, the program Mentoring by the Masters, it garnered some publicity this year. But that program, Mr. Deputy Speaker, is carded for budding artists who are already involved in the art form, and they are paired with mentors, masters in their field. This year we had people like Dr. Susan Burke, Wendell Manwaran, Mailing, Pearl Entu Springer, Felix Edinburgh, who would impart on these budding artists the skills, the tips, the best practices to make them hone their craft in a more professional way. 126 budding artists participated in this program. Over 230 people applied, but we were only able to accommodate 126. Technical camps, Mr. Deputy Speaker, that deals with visual arts, stage makeup, fashion design, video production, media arts. These are the background production elements that sometimes people don't see behind the arts. Technical camps were offered 10 around the country for artists. Again, you had to be involved in the area to benefit from the type of training offered. 10 camps were held, and they were even held for the best village groups that allowed the theater arts personnel to get more training so that their productions could be even more excellent. 150 artists benefited. Life skills training. The community mediation services under the ministry offers free training in conflict resolution, parenting, anger management, emotional intelligence. This year in 2018, over 15 communities benefited and over 1,000 persons participated in those courses. Also, let me tell you, if you are a member of the public and you're having problems at home, problems at work, free mediation and counseling services are available at the mediation centers around the country. And Mr. Deputy Speaker, I'm happy to report that we have successfully purchased 2 mediation buses, mobile units, which will now go into the rural areas where we don't have actual physical mediation centers to offer these services to the population. Mr. Deputy Speaker, over 6,000 persons accessed mediation services and counseling in 2018. Are you looking for vacation activities for your children? The Ministry of Community Development, Culture and Arts also offers options there. This year, 129 students were exposed to a 5-week music education program, music schools in the community. And that culminated with a Dream Big concert where these students exposed to music had the opportunity to perform on the Napa stage. Again, full of parents, full of community members who were so proud to see their young people on the stage performing. Again, this is a free program offered, and what we did this year to tweak it and make it even more impactful, we selected 2 students from the program, and we are putting them into community music schools, the normal music schools that have existed for years, where you learn to play piano or you learn to play whatever instrument, and we have selected them to put into those schools to do a year of training. And when they're finished that year, they can intern with the national performing entities, the National Steel Symphony Orchestra, National Philharmonic Orchestra, to be able to hone their musical skills so that we can develop artists by partnering with the existing community music schools after we have exposed them in the vacation program. 129 students got that opportunity this year. We support cultural camps as well. 14 were supported, and these camps deal with different aspects of our culture, mass making, music, different aspects of the culture. 428 participants under the age of 18 in the vacation period were able to benefit from that with the support of the ministry. The Junior Best Village camps, over 500 children enrolled in 9 camps around the country, and these children were exposed again to different aspects of the Best Village and the arts, the folk arts of Trinidad and Tobago. For community arts groups, community arts groups and other arts groups that are represented in Trinidad and Tobago, I don't know where else in our region or indeed in the world there's a national arts program that gives these groups the opportunity to come in, compete. They are tutored. Best Village has employed over the years tutors, and in 2018, we employed over 300 tutors in the Best Village program, and over 7,000 participants, 75% of them under the age of 30, took part in this program, where they were able to immerse themselves for months in a national program that funded them and allowed them to hone their skills in the arts and take part and participate and do positive things for their community. We're speaking about building community bonds. We are speaking about creating a new cadre of artists. This is one way that we are doing it. So if you are a community group looking forward to participating in a national competition, the Best Village program is there for you under the Ministry of Community Development, Culture and the Arts. Over 20 categories of dance, music, vocals, theater, and we have added in the spoken word category this year, responding to the fact that this genre is really making a difference in the lives of the orators and the literary skills. So we've added in spoken word for 2018, and in 2019, we are looking to introduce an amateur film category where we can again involve the young people and reinvent the Best Village program. Mr. Deputy Speaker, there are people looking for premier spaces to stage their productions. And in Trinidad and Tobago, there's a lot going on. If you have a copy of our cultural calendar or you go onto our Culture TT app, you will see how many productions are going on in Trinidad and Tobago. The premier performance spaces in the country, Napa, Sapa, Naparima Bowl, Queen's Hall, and let me add to that the Queen's Park Savannah, which is again a huge space, underutilized and can be resourced by the population. And we are happy to have added to that Stallmeyer's Castle. All of these are available to the public for the staging of productions. They are all well maintained, being constantly upgraded and professionally staffed. And at this juncture, I need to refer to a comment made by Princestown that the performing space projects have been on the books year after year after year in the PSIP. And I understand the members' confusion, because it is clear that the UNC government does not know what maintenance and upgrade looks like.
Member,
you don't know
please.
about that. And I know you don't know about that,
Member.
because when we came in 2015, Napa, the premier performance space of the country, had been closed due to lack of maintenance since 2014. That facility, Mr. Deputy Speaker, cost this country more than $200 million. It is a flagship. It is something that we are all very proud of. And yet, the UNC refused to maintain it. They preferred to close it, displacing all the UTT students that were resident there, displacing all of the performers that were there and were participating in productions there. So I understand the members' confusion, because they didn't understand that if you have to maintain it, it has to be on the books to be able to be upgraded. You have, once you build something, you have to maintain
members.
it. You have to maintain it, or else it becomes, you maintain your home, you maintain any space. And it is clear that the UNC did not know what maintenance was about. And you know, the thing is, I sat down here and I heard the member for Caroni East stand, and somebody who you look up to as somebody who has been in the parliament for a long time. And I heard him declare for the public to hear, and I hope they were listening, that he is ashamed to be a citizen of Trinidad and Tobago. I heard him declare it. And I heard him. And I heard the member from Princestown.
Member for St. Anne's East.
48-6, Madam, Mr. Deputy Speaker. I said I'm ashamed to be a citizen of Trinidad and Tobago when the healthcare system is as bad as it is at this moment. And I go back into Hansard and check.
Okay, member. Overruled. Proceed.
Thank you. So I heard, and he has admitted, he said that he's ashamed to be a citizen of Trinidad and Tobago. And I further heard the member for Princestown stand and say
Well, if you didn't
that
hear the rest,
hashtag...
If you didn't hear the rest, you're deaf.
Members. Have a seat. Caroni East, you're completed? Yes. All right, and again, I would not tolerate that kind of behavior in the chamber. As you yourself mentioned, you are senior in the chamber, and I will not tolerate that. Member for Moruga Tableland. Right, member for Caroni East? Please. And Princestown, likewise, again, I will not tolerate. You have my ear, member for St. Anne's.
Thank you so much, Mr. Deputy Speaker. As I was saying, I heard the member say that he is ashamed.
Move on to your next point. Mr. Deputy Speaker,
I am being interrupted in making my point. I beg your protection.
Again, I have ruled, and again, I need no repeaters. Caroni East, and likewise Princestown, and likewise Moruga Tableland. Again, proceed. Member for St. Anne's East, your point has been made. Move on, please.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Speaker. I heard in this House the member for Princestown say, hashtag Trinidad is not a real place. I heard you say...
Member, Princestown, I just spoke about it, please. We would not like to relive past scenarios, and I do not want to make any commands of what I'm going to do on the next occasion. I would prefer not go that way. So, member for St. Anne's East, proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Speaker. So, as I was saying, Mr. Deputy Speaker, the utterances of the member for Princestown referring to the fact that the performing spaces have been allocated monies to be able to upgrade and maintain them. That is classic P&M, because what we build, we maintain and ensure that it's available to the public to be used for the purpose in which it was intended. And if you have a smaller event, and we're speaking about the availability of spaces for productions, artistic productions, if there's a smaller event that cannot be held in the premier spaces, I want to indicate that there are over 250 community centers which have been built across this country. And these centers, many of them, especially the newer ones, can accommodate artistic productions within their halls. They are air-conditioned, some of them two-story, they have elevators, and we have opened for the year 2018 21 new centers either opened or recommissioned in all over Trinidad and Tobago. What we have also done, Mr. Deputy Speaker, is to introduce new governance arrangement for these centers, because the older centers were small, they were not very well equipped. But these new centers, as I said, many of them two-story elevators, big halls, AC units, very complex. And so we have seen the need to institute new arrangements for governing these centers so that they can be well maintained and continue to be available to the public. So these centers have now been equipped with boards, and what we have done, we have harmonized the boards that are in the regional complexes, the community centers, and the civic centers, because before, the community centers were the small ones, the regional complexes were the big ones. It is now, in many cases, reversed. And so they need the same type of governance arrangement to ensure that they remain well-maintained, upgraded, and available to the public. So we have instituted 13 new boards of management at community centers that never had these boards in this way before, and we are ensuring that they are well taken care of. For artisans, Mr. Deputy Speaker, and everywhere you go to a tourist country, you look for a craft market where you can buy authentic craft. That's a hallmark of tourism. And so the development of the artisans is very important. We have held 7 craft markets at the lobbies of Napa and Sapa over the past years, where over 113 artisans had the opportunity to sell their wares. And what we have done, we have worked with the artisans so that they now, many of them, use their links machines, because that was a holdback to the artisans where you had to work with cash. Now, the artisans, through our intervention and our working with them, many of them have their links machines, so you can go into those craft markets as you're on your way to whatever artistic production in our premier, well-maintained spaces, and you can buy your craft and see what's on offer in Trinidad and Tobago. Seeking assistance with a community infrastructure project, or if you're a homeowner who has a minor repair to do on your home. The National Commission for Self-Help assists with home repairs and community projects. And as I mentioned that, I want to mention again the member for Princestown, who had a lot to say about the Self-Help Commission, and he mentioned some paltry figures. And the member for Tunapuna also offered some question as to the validity of those figures. But I want to say that over 1,000 grants have been distributed by the National Self-Help Commission between 2015 and 2018. And I want to just to add to the record, seeing that we have to elucidate, that self-help between 2010 and 2015 was deeply involved in building unauthorized community centers for MPs, handed over to members of parliament, that when we came in 2015, we had to regularize. Because in some cases, when the members of parliament changed, you could not find the keys, you could not maintain the centers, some of them had no lights working, and that was the conduct of the National Commission for Self-Help between 2010 and 2015. I want to mention the starter houses again, that were built with no authority from the cabinet. And I want to say, without apology, that 99% of these community centers that were given to MPs and starter homes were built in the UNC areas. I go back to the start of what I said. When I said the vision and strategy did not extend to all areas of the country. I want to talk about some of the grants that were given for churches under the National Self-Help Commission, associated closely with sitting ministers of government under the UNC. I will mention that, and I heard a member for Princestown say that self-help is what? No help or something like that, but it seems that those self-help between 2010 to 2015 was help yourself under the UNC government. It seems like that is what is going on. And I want to mention the member for Princestown, who wants to talk and wants to aspire to high office, and constantly bringing our country down and constantly saying things like hashtag Trinidad is not a real place. I want to say to you that if you like hashtags, let me offer you one. Hashtag, the UNC is not a real party. Moving on, Mr. Deputy Speaker, to the community groups who are seeking to host events in the communities. Over $15 million in grant funding offered to community groups, NGOs, cultural institutions, and the grant application process has been refined to include an application form, which was never there before, to include monitoring, a completion report to ensure that the money that was given was used for the correct purpose. All of that has now been instituted and is ongoing in the Ministry of Community Development, Culture and the Arts to promote transparency and accountability in the use of government funds. Let me mention our mediation services, where there's peer mediation happening in 10 schools around the country, offering anger management, conflict resolution, time management to students in schools. So if the schools are looking for support, the ministry can also offer that to schools. And again, let me summarize by saying that if you're an artist seeking opportunities, you can be a trainer in the CEP programs. You can be, if you're a musician, you can take place in the Live at Lunch series. If you're a filmmaker, this year we partnered with Film TT to give 3 new filmmakers the opportunity of developing their first feature-length film production. The Ministry of Community Development and Arts put in $250,000 of seed funding for 3 filmmakers, and they are on their way now to develop their films in time for next year. The Artist Registry registers groups, and sometimes artists come to us asking for certification that they are artists in Trinidad and Tobago. That facility is available to you through the Artist Registry. Again, I mentioned the Best Village program, where we hire 377 tutors, not to mention all of the background production people, those in dressmaking, production technology, choreography, design, makeup, script writing, catering. All of these people are involved in the spin-off of that Best Village program. Again, I want to mention the opportunity, the premier opportunity for artists in our country is coming up in 2019 when Trinidad and Tobago hosts CariFesta 14. It's taking place from August 16 to 25th, 2019, and that is the premier opportunity for artists in our country to have a stage of the Caribbean. The region will be coming to Trinidad and Tobago, and that's your premier opportunity. So it's performers, visual artists, again, the background people, the fashion designers, production technicians, fringe event planners. So if you have a space and you're looking to plan a fringe event, think about what's happening from August 16 to 25th, 2019. Caterers, security workers, construction workers, engineers, as we construct the infrastructure of CARIFESTA, all of these people will be given an opportunity as we go into CARIFESTA next year. So the spin-off factor is huge. We are launching CARIFESTA come the 23rd of October. That's this month. And so the population will be much more educated as to what's happening as we roll out the marketing plan in phases. So as we review the Ministry of Community Development, Culture and the Arts 10-point value-added plan, to summarize, we provide entertainment opportunities, training in skills and the arts, vacation activities for children, national arts competition, that's the Best Village program, for individuals and community groups, premier performance spaces, as well as community performance spaces, craft markets, assistance for minor home repairs and community infrastructure projects, funding assistance for hosting community events. So if you're a community group, we can offer you some funding. Mediation support and counseling and training in schools, and various opportunities for artists, whether it's training, funding, job opportunities. So I want to assure the population that the investment into culture and community development is well spent. We are working. I want to really commend the executive, the PS, and the executive of the ministry, as well as the other staff who are professional in their execution, who look for ways to surmount problems, and who do much more with less. And I really want to commend them for the hard work that they have done. And as I just close off this section, I want to say to us that this budget is termed turnaround. And it is important for us to consider in Trinidad and Tobago our own attitude. And the member for Tobago East alluded to it. And even the member for Tabaquite alluded to it in his speech. I want to quote some articles. As far back as 2006, there's an article by A. Maharaj in the Newsday of the 22nd of September 2006, which said, it was titled, "We Are Too Negative." In Newsday of 28 July 2012, an author, B. Sandy, wrote an article which was titled, "More Positive Words Needed." In the Newsday of August 28, 2016, an article by Corey Connolly described a love-hate mindset among citizens that persists in many facets of national life. Rather than analyze the factors which contribute to a particular end, many simply submit to outright bashing. And in that same article, Reginald Dumas, a well-known independent thinker, put it like that, opined, "We are essentially a pull-down society. We do not build. You cannot be proud of a country only when it does well." And I dare say, you cannot only want to be a citizen of a country when it's good times. We come down to April 2018. We had the first female athlete from Trinidad and Tobago to win gold in an individual track and field event. And this is at the 2018 Commonwealth Games. And that person was Michelle Liahi. And we were so happy when she won the gold. And yet still, just soon after, she was moved to tweet by the actions of us here. She was moved to tweet, "Do something good for the country," and they still find a way to be negative. I want to suggest that in addition to turning around our economy, as citizens of this country, we have a lot to be thankful for and grateful for. And it's not now that we are being negative. It's something that has been developing all along. I've read something from since 2006. And I'm saying to us that we need to turn around our attitude in this country as well, because there are many countries who are much, much worse off than we are. Everything is not roses, but it's not as bad as we make it out to be. At this juncture, I would like to speak about my constituency of St. Anne's East. I would like to offer first and foremost thanks to my constituency office staff, very hardworking. They take care of my constituents when I am not around. They see them, they meet them, and they see about their needs. I want to say a heartfelt thanks to my constituency office staff and also my constituency family. There are so many people, and I want to join with the member from Tobago West, who speaks about the people who just offer you a word of cheer, who just say, even though it may be hard, and all members of parliament have a difficult job, who say, "We are praying for you, we are looking out for you, we are glad for you." I want to thank my constituents for their support. I want to also offer my thanks to various colleagues who have assisted me in my constituency and have helped to meet the needs of the public in St. Anne's East. I want to thank the various members who would have participated and helped us, for example, with the river wall in Sambuku. Mr. Deputy Speaker, on September the 28th, 2017, there was a very terrible flood in Sambuku, and that flood saw the pushing down of a river wall and the subsequent flooding of an entire community in Sambuku. And I want to thank the Ministry of Works for their quick action, because by the time the same heavy rains came, exactly on the same day in September 28, 2018, that wall was rebuilt and those citizens were saved from the type of devastating floods that they experienced in 2017. So thank you, Ministry of Works, from the residents of Sambuku along Sandbank Avenue and environs. I want to thank the ministry again for the attention paid to the Saddle Road. That is a main artery for the citizens of St. Anne's, especially in the Santa Cruz area and those who go across to Maraval. And I want to thank them for the attention that was paid after the rains. This rainy season, we had quite a number of potholes developing that were very, very deep, and they responded and assisted us there. I want to thank them again for those citizens, those constituents in the North Coast. And my constituency goes up to Las Cuevas, includes Maracas Bay as well. And that North Coast area has been experiencing a lot of turbulence in terms of landslides. And recently, there was a very terrible landslip that took away half of the road in a particular area. And the Ministry of Works was very quick to act to install the Bailey Bridge. I was up there last week, drove over the bridge, and I was very happy for my constituents. And they, on their behalf, I say thank you. They were very happy because when that was a one lane, of course, it made things very difficult. To the extent, sometimes you don't think about the difficulties they face in the North Coast, but to the extent that the gas tanker could not pass to be able to deliver gas up in Maracas Bay in the gas station there. And what that caused was the fishermen could not get their regular gas to be able to go out and fish. So there are a lot of different things that are impacted when the roads are affected. And I want to thank the Ministry of Works for their quick action in alleviating the issues up in the North Coast.
Honourable Member, your speaking time has elapsed initially, and you have an additional 10. Care to avail? Yes. Proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Speaker. I also want to thank the Ministry of Works Drainage Division for the dredging of the Santa Cruz River. The Hololo area is well known for its flooding, and when it does that, Mr. Deputy Speaker, it cuts off the lower part of Santa Cruz from the upper part. This year, we are happy to say that we were not getting that type of flooding. I can't remember one incident where that road flooded to the extent that it was cut off, and that was because of the dredging of the Santa Cruz River, and it prevented that flooding. The residents of Santa Cruz again say thank you to the Ministry of Works. I also want to highlight, last year we were able to get a roundabout in the area of La Pastora, bordering La Pastora and Cantaro, which helped because that particular area always had accidents, including people being bounced down at that corner. So we were able to get that roundabout to offer safety to the citizens in that area. And this year, we were able to get some pedestrian crossings on the Maracas Royal Road, so allow the people who are going into the health center and into one of the busiest churches, the St. Michael's RC Church, to be able to cross the road in safety. And that was an important thing that they were asking for, because we had many senior citizens who could not cross very quickly, and there was a tendency for cars to be zooming along that stretch, and that has impacted their lives and made it a lot safer. So we thank them for that as well. I want to thank the agencies, all the agencies involved. I heard the member for Tabakit speaking today about bringing in self-help to supply materials and Ministry of Works supply labor. I want to thank those exact two agencies for the assistance rendered in the Farrell Hill, Brooknatchis area, and also the regional corporation, because we had to come together to get the materials, supply the labor, and to be able to supply the drainage as well. Very, very, very steep hill, and they were able to do that, and I want to thank them because the residents of Farrell Hill are very grateful for that. I want to make mention of the CPEP and the URP teams that are out in the constituency and that are working, not just providing emergency relief for unemployed persons, also keeping our environment clean. It's very important for us to have a clean environment, and they have been doing human service, both in the projects as well as the routine maintenance that they have been doing, and we are very grateful for that. The residents of Brook-Mlatchis and Febo are grateful for the refurbished community centers, very densely populated areas, very well-used community centers, and though they are not new, they have been refurbished, and the residents are very grateful for that. They also are happy for the play park that has been installed at the Brook-Mlatchis recreational grounds, and those play parks assist the persons who are looking for some entertainment as well as some exercise on the afternoon, and it's very well utilized right next to the community center, and they are very, very pleased. We are looking at the Crosswinds Boulevard in La Pastora and the Susulans in Febo. Those two areas, their roads have started the rehabilitation process, and again, the residents are very grateful. They have been a sore issue for a long time. St. Anne's is a very mountainous areas, and some of these roads, if they are not well maintained and if they are not restored in the right way, the cars cannot make it up the hills. And when that happens, it means that senior citizens have to be footing it up very, very steep mountains, which again is something that is untenable. So we thank them for the work going on there. Las Cuevas Road in Maracas Valley, your works are coming soon. You'd have seen the visit starting, and so we expect that to start very soon in this fiscal. Las Cuevas and Maracas Bay, I have noted the request of Las Cuevas for community space. I have noticed that the Maracas Community Center is also in a state that needs some work, and I will be discussing those issues with both village councils to see how some relief can be brought there. Cantara and La Pastora, work continues apace in your communities, and we look forward for all of the commitments to be kept by the end of the calendar year in 2019. So, Mr. Deputy Speaker, as I conclude, I want to thank my family for the support, my children, and those who assist in that, because as female members of Parliament may know, it is difficult as a mother when you have children and you have to also straddle that role. So I want to thank my family, my husband, and my parents for that support. Again, I want to thank my constituency office staff. I want to thank my constituents, the Ministry of Finance, the Minister of Finance, Minister of Planning, and the Prime Minister for his astute leadership. I want to thank God, and Deputy Speaker, I want to thank you again for the opportunity.
I recognize the member for Naparima.
Thank you very much, Mr. Deputy Speaker, for allowing me to join this debate of the 2018-19 budget laid in this House on October the 1st by the Minister of Finance. I wish to congratulate the Member of Parliament for Siparia on her budget contribution, one that laid out a comprehensive plan that would ensure that post-2020, Trinidad and Tobago would be able to take its rightful place in the 21st century nation global village. The Member of Parliament for Siparia laid out a roadmap based on a comprehensive vision. It was not an alternative vision. It was the only vision for Trinidad and Tobago before us. She talked about a vision of a global digital economy, prosperity through innovation, entrepreneurship, and a share-owning democracy, economic diversification, and a blue, green, silver, and digital economy. And tax reform leading to a reduced corporation tax to stimulate growth, as occurs in many developed countries, including the United States. She showed clearly that this budget before us is not a utopia. It is a dystopia, Mr. Deputy Speaker. It is not a turnaround. In fact, it was a runaround. Mr. Deputy Speaker, I wish to congratulate the other speakers. All of our speakers on this side showed depth, they showed comprehensiveness, quality, class, and intellect. Mr. Deputy Speaker, I listened intently to the contribution of my colleague, the member for St. Anne's East. And when I listened, Mr. Deputy Speaker, I keep wondering when I listen to the PNM members, are we residing in the same planet, in the same world? Because they talk about a turnaround in community development and culture. And what we experience is different, a turnaround, a runaround. That is what we experience. And I read the Trinidad Guardian Saturday, 6 October. And this was an article published by Campbell. And he says, less money and emphasis is being placed on the creative arts, although it has been identified as an important element of the country's diversification thrust. Music industry analyst and concert promoter Nigel Campbell said yesterday that was his assessment of the 2019 budget presented on Monday by the finance minister. And he went on to say he's using less and less words to describe the creative industry. Every year he comes and he uses less and less words. And he reached a low of 15 words 2 years ago. But more importantly, he's been allocating less money. He said, Campbell said the creative arts sector had previously been given $6 million. And this was decreased to $4.25 million last year. And in this year's fiscal budget, it was reduced to $4 million. So we hear all these glowing comments about the priority of this government for the creative arts. And facts are stubborn things. It is not manifested by the government's financial allocation. But that is not all, Mr. Deputy Speaker. If things were going so well in the creative arts sector and community development, etc., why, and the minister ought to tell us, why was no money allocated? And in fact, there was no PAGWA in the Mecca of PAGWA 2018 in Aranguez, Savannah, due to no support from the government. No PAGWA in 2018. And if we are led to believe in glowing terms about what is happening in our culture and what the NCC chairman recently said in a world survey of best carnivals in the world, 2017 and 18, Trinidad and Tobago is not ranked among the top 10. We started the thing. We give it to the world, and we are not ranked among the top 10. That is not a turnaround, Mr. Deputy Speaker. It is a runaround. The Culture Minister needs to tell us if it is correct that Honorable Minister went down to Bonsi Trace Pinal, Separia constituency, recently to open a community center, which was built by the political leader, Mrs. Kamla Prasad Bisesa. And she did not have the courtesy to invite the MP for the area. They put a nameplate on the head table, but never invited the leader. Fooling people into thinking that we shall embrace and work together, but in reality, the actions do not display that. Mr. Deputy Speaker, when my colleague spoke, I recall the comments by the MP for Oropuch West when she gave the MP for Laventille West a second baptism, not with water as in the past, but with fire, brimstone, and superb wind. I hope the member for Laventille West will repent and turn from his accustomed PNM ways. But I will not hold my breath, Mr. Deputy Speaker. As I get into my presentation, I want to talk about personal experience in respect of this budget. The Prime Minister told this Honorable House a couple months ago that he was encouraging the citizenry to buy smaller, more fuel-efficient vehicles. And he said, and I quote, "We can't," and he's speaking to the nation, "we can't afford it," meaning fuel. "We must now be concerned about how..."
Your quote is from where? This quote where your quote is actually coming from?
Well, this quote, yes, this quote came from the Well, it was spoken in the budget, in Parliament, and I have the quote. I'll get it. It's reference 1. I'll find it and I'll give it later. He said, and I quote, and it could be substantiated, "We can't afford fuel. We must now be concerned about how we use fuel, and we must be more fuel conscious." And he said, so anybody who wants to buy a bigger car, and he was talking about his cabinet colleagues, and I think they know that, who wants to buy a bigger car or a high-end car, he said to buy it with your own money. And that was good. Buy a smaller vehicle in order to save fuel. Well, I took the advice. The Prime Minister's advice. And I bought, when it became available, a smaller, more fuel-efficient vehicle. Moved from a Fortuner, which was using diesel, to a smaller car, 2,000 litre, using gas, super gasoline. Guess what? I followed the Prime Minister's advice. Bought a smaller vehicle. After the budget by the member for Digopa, Martin Northeast, every time I fill my tank, I have to spend $60 more, Mr. Deputy Speaker. I fill my tank twice a week, $120 a week more I spend, following the advice of the Honorable Prime Minister. It works out to $480 a month, or close to $6,000 a year. So I, Rodney Charles, am $6,000 a month a year poorer, because I followed the advice of the Honorable Prime Minister. Well, I've learned a lesson from that. Hear the lesson. I will take no further advice from Dr. the Honorable Keith Christopher Rowley. He talks, if he tells me to run, I'm going to walk. If he tells me eat, I'm going to starve. And if he tells me there's a turnaround, I'll tell him it's a runaround. We come, Mr. Deputy Speaker, to the second point. When I read this budget and contemplated the terror that has been unleashed on our population, with 6,000, depending on who you listen to, 6,000 petrol-trained workers now on the breadline. And I have met some of them, and the story is not a happy one. Men having to go to their families and tell them that they may not be in the foreseeable future able to provide for them as they did in the past. 3,000 persons on the fence line and oil service companies. Fears and concerns of 2,000 TSTT workers. We heard today in the papers that they said that it is a rumor, but we know how the P&M operates. It could be a start, and we will hear something in the future. We have heard talks about overstaffing at WASA and possibly at T&Tech and other state enterprises. Next year we have property tax looming. We have increased payments on the horizon in T&Tech and WASA. And already we have super gasoline, and I told you that this is going to cost me $6,000 per year. Yesterday's Guardian sought to articulate and ventilate the views of some of these petrol-trained workers. And an article headline, "Petrol-trained workers get severance ahead of court ruling." And that speaks to another issue about disrespect for our judiciary. I quote, "One worker said he was worried about how he will maintain his family if not rehired." He continued, "Things real hard. I have a lot of commitments. Job hard to get now, especially at my age." And so, Mr. Deputy Speaker, when I contemplate the terror inflicted on a battered citizenry in this 2019 budget, Mr. Deputy Speaker, I see hate. Mr. Deputy Speaker, that is what I see. I see acrimony, Mr. Deputy Speaker. That is what I see. I see animosity. I see a government and a country that is completely out of control, Mr. Deputy Speaker. That is what I see. And if we get up to put an alternative view, if we oppose my dear friends opposite, they become a raging bull and they invite you to join them on the pavement. Completely out of control. And it is in the area of crime when one sees a government and a cabinet and a party that is completely out of its depth and it completely out of control. So we are left, when we speak of crime, we have to decide as citizens whether we want to die in our homes due to our invasion or we die on the streets. We live in jails which sometimes kill us when a fire occurs because we cannot escape because of the burglar proof and if we didn't plan well. We have to look over our shoulders. That is where we have reached in this society. You walk and you look, you're constantly looking over your shoulders as you walk the streets. We look at strangers suspiciously, fellow citizens. Instead of the first option being to embrace and engage, we look suspiciously. Many of us remain on pressure tablets. And we are shot in our backs, even if we sit in a bar or in a restaurant talking to our friends, we are shot in our back as we sit in the bars. And the normally loquacious Minister of National Security is telling us that crime is down, Mr. Deputy Speaker. And I ask the question, which planet is the minister residing in? And I would refer him to all the anecdotal evidence in the newspapers. Trinidad Guardian, 21st September, headline, South businesses under attack by criminals. Power 102 on the 16th of the 3rd, 2018, 5 murders overnight. TT murder toll spirals in the first 75 days of the year. Trinidad Guardian, 15th September, lawlessness rampant in Oropoon. You can get guns, drugs, and even more. Newsday, 19th September, councillor home shot at. And she said, I never expected crime to reach my doorsteps. Express, 4th October, killed by bandit despite mom's plea. The mother is pleading for her son, but he killed. October 3rd, murders without end. Debe Barline ends in bloodshed. Trinidad Guardian, 17th of the 3rd, 7 killed in 24 hours. Loop News, 4th October 2018, death toll rises after 2 killed in South Trinidad. And we are told that crime is down. The Member of Parliament for Port of Spain North, St. Anne's West, was familiarly known as the Minister of Everything. And as my leader said in this honorable house, the minister has now morphed into being the Minister of Nothing. He is now most silent, coming out from the closet time to time to issue threats to a battered and beaten citizenry. Part of the problem we have in the country, Mr. Deputy Speaker, is that we put square pegs in round holes. We do not have qualified and experienced people making the decisions for us and making judgments as to our lives and how we should live. When we look in Canada, the kinds of experience, and that makes the point, the point about the leadership and the kinds of qualifications and experience they have. Canada's National Defense Minister, Harjit Singh Saijan, he has experience both in policing and in combat experience. He has served Canada and his community as both a soldier and a police officer. He was a detective constable with the gang crime unit, specializing in organized crime with the Vancouver Police Department for 11 years. He has combat experience. He's a combat veteran and a lieutenant colonel in the Canadian Armed Forces. And this Minister of National Security has the effrontery to tell this population that crime has been reduced since he assumed office. And that is a quote from the Daily Express, Thursday, 4th October, 2018, page 3. is that minister for real? I want him to tell the family of the slain guitarist, Shivan Premnath Ramdani, reportedly shot 3 times in his back because he was a witness in a murder case before the courts. And they come and tell us, and I think that was a point raised by my colleague, from the MP from Barataria, Sawa. They come and tell us in this budget with a straight face that they will offer $100,000 to anyone who provides information that leads to the conviction of any of the 25 most wanted criminals. So we take the minister's advice. We give information to the police. Presumably, we go to court as a witness, and we wait 10 years or so for a conviction to collect $100,000. And we have to depend on this Minister of National Security to protect us for 10 years. Does the Minister of National Security really believe that these most wanted criminals will let us live if we testify against them in the court? Does this Minister of National Security believe that our witness protection program, as it currently exists, will guarantee our survival for 10 years? But you know, there's an issue. The subvention to Crime Stoppers remains the same $2 million. That's on page 150 of the recurrent budget. In the budget, the finance minister said, and I quote, "I therefore propose that the budgetary allocation to be increased by an additional $2.5 million. So he says in the budget, the Minister of Finance says in the budget, he intends to increase the budget, the allocation by 2.5, making it $4.5 million. Instead, when we go to the budget documents, the estimates of expenditure, we see it is still $2 million. Are they serious? So they are not allocating money to support the utterances in Parliament. And they want us to go and put our lives at risk to give evidence against the 25 most wanted criminals in Trinidad. Have they heard the axiom, to thine own self be true? Or put another way, self-preservation is the first law of nature. Or to use our rich dialect, man must live. Crime is done, we're told. We want to tell that to the family of a dedicated public servant, Superintendent of Prisons, Wayne Jackson, who served for 30 years in our prison service. For years we have heard, it is nothing new, for years we have heard that prison officers' lives are at risk. What proactive policy measures did this newly minted Minister of National Security take to ensure that this officer would be alive today? You see, policy is not about talk and it's not about gallerying. It is about establishing policies proactively that make sense, that guide the operational, tactical aspect of our remit, leading to an output in terms of a safety and security for citizens. Crime is down. Tell that to the 76 persons murdered since this Minister of National Security assumed office on May the 6th of this year. Over 1,500 murdered since this bankrupt of ideas government assumed office. 1,500 of our fellow citizens dead, buried. They came with great fanfare, Mr. Deputy Speaker, and told us in this House about their National Crime Prevention Program. It was a panacea, they said. It would lead to a turnaround, a utopia. And I'll teach them a word. Instead, we have a dystopia. Today, not a word in this budget about that vaunted crime plan. Not a single word. They now know, as we knew then, that this is not a turnaround. This is a runaround budget. From September 2015 to the present, there have been 1,503 murders. Mr. Deputy Speaker, I thought I would have been speaking on the first day. So the first day it was 1,501. And every day I had to scratch off and add on. So if you look, you would see it's now 1,503. And probably if I could talk to my staff, I'll get another figure. From September 2015 to December, 141. 2016, 462. But the murder increase from the previous year was 10%. So they came into power, and immediately there was an increase in murders. 2017, 495 murders. From 2016 to 2017, murders increased by 7.1%. And 2018, today, we have 410 murders. 75 murders since the member for Port of Spain North, St. Anne's West, assumed office. So, Deputy Speaker, the only growth business, they talk about a turnaround, the only growth business in the constituency of Naparima is one business. It is Guide's Funeral Home on Manahambri Road. So many deaths, whether it is death from murders or whether it's death from pressure, the inability to live, the end product is our citizens are dying under this incompetent PNM government. They tell us they're closing down Petrotrin to save the economy. Over 6,000 on the breadline, and more in the frontline communities and in the energy sector. Does this minister, does that government understand that there's a connection between increased unemployment and rising crime? Mr. Deputy Speaker, does he know, or does the member for Port of Spain North, St. Anne's West know, that Petrotrin, the company that they want to close down, has a footprint in many, a cultural footprint in many parts of Trinidad and Tobago. Petrotrin sponsors various social and cultural groups in several communities in Trinidad. The Petrotrin Siparia Deltones, the Petrotrin Hatters Steel Orchestra in San Fernando, where I live, the Petrotrin Katsem Jammers Steel Orchestra, Voices of Petrotrin Choir, Petrotrin Cadet Corps, Petrotrin Budu Singh Tassa Group, Petrotrin Jazz Basketball Team, comprehensive, Sir Deputy Speaker, all of these are not sure what will happen tomorrow. You have the Petrotrin Levantamientos Parang Group, Petrotrin Women's Football Team, and the Trinma Point 14 Community Chorale, and the Southern Marines in Marabella. All gone through. What is the future of these groups? Was it even considered in government's indecent haste to close down the refinery? Does the minister know that the devil finds work for idle hands? And what about the vaunted all-of-government approach, where we bring in community development, culture, we bring in sports, education, skills training, and agriculture in a comprehensive all-of-government plan to reduce crime? You see, I was a PNM before them. I talked to Eric Williams. He spoke to me. And when in the 50s, 50s and 60s, we had the gang warfare in Port of Spain, when the steel band clash, if you see Cutlash, that calypso. And what he did was an all-of-government approach. He said, Best Village with Joyce Wong sang. He had what we call the groups in Presto youth camps. He employed some in the regiment. We had Dude, the forerunner to URP. And we had Pancho and Bego, where the battle between the Pan men became musical war. And when we look today at a panorama and you see them tension and war between the bands, that was Eric Williams transforming war on the ground with cutlass, with musical war, Pan. All of government approach. He didn't pass on to this generation of PNM. Sometimes I wonder if they're really PNM. Callousness, cruelty, inhumanity, characterizing a group of people that carry the label. Mr. Deputy Speaker, after having spent more than 24 billion on national security, and proposing to spend $6 billion in fiscal 2018-2019. Our country is more unsafe than it has ever been in its history. These figures are taken from the Commissioner of Police report for the week ending September 29, 2018. They are compiled by the TTPS, Police Service, on a weekly basis. I quote, since September 2015, more than 1,005 persons have been murdered. I said that before. There has been 34 murders this year compared to the same, 34 murders more this year compared to the same period last year. There has been 121 reported cases of rape, incest, and other sexual offenses. Serious indecency has increased over the last year's figures by 93%. There has been 23% increase in kidnapping and 60% increase in kidnapping for ransom. This is shameful. There has been 198 more reported robberies in 2018 than over the same period in 2017. The Deputy Speaker, or political leader, directed us, or MPs, to hold consultations in our constituencies. And coming out of the consultations in Naparima, crime was the major concern, especially as criminals migrate from hotspots which appear to receive more attention. Constituents call for more community policing, closer interaction with police officers, greater police visibility, and more attention to at-risk youth. Mr. Deputy Speaker, when I was growing up, we had youth, we had cadets, we had Boy Scouts, we had Boy Cubs. I remember I myself was a Boy Cub, a Kayla. We will do our best, we'll dub. That was part of the Cub chant that we had in those days. We had in our schools, we had books like Wilfred D. Best, Student's Companion, talking about civics. We had 4-H clubs. We had to leave and go and plant the day that was all right. And we had sports, all part of talent, all of government approach to creating a good citizenry. What we have today is government in silos. You cannot see the integration. You cannot see the synergy between all the moving parts of this government. The Minister of Education, my friend, went to Mausika together. So he couldn't make the statement. So they misquoted him in The Guardian. He is saying that fighting in schools. I talked how in the colonial era, how they sought to make us civic-minded students. Schools today are training grounds for dysfunctional citizens of tomorrow. He said, the Minister of Education, he does not even believe, according to this report, which I do not believe he said, because he could not have said it. He does not believe that bullying is an issue in our schools.
Member, you continue to make quotes and you're not providing us with the information of where your source. You're not providing with the source. Once that's the case, it becomes yours. All right? So just be clear of that, please.
Yes, it is mine.
All right,
and I can vouch for the veracity of it. So the minister on Loop News, in Loop TT, this is the source, News, Loop TT News, December 20th, 2017, the Minister Garcia said, fighting in school is an inevitable part of growing up. He said schoolboys fight to establish themselves. The question I asked, was it inevitable for Miss Faye Charles' son from New Grant to be in hospital, seasoned, vomiting, with continuous headaches because he was badly beaten by a bully? He's afraid to go back to school and now has to be transferred due to fear of beating. And this is Trinidad Express, September 21st, this year. There are reports of a Form 5 student, my colleague, I showed it to him in the last parliament, a Form 5 student of Tabaquite Secondary School who has ignored his suspension and continues to harass and disrupt and even assault students of the school without any respect for authority. Newsday, October the 6th, 2018, page 8. And the very loquacious newly appointed Minister of National Security appears to have gone suddenly silent. Country collapsing, schools breaking down, crime growing exponentially, and we get in silence. But he can run. But he cannot hide from the fact that since he was appointed on August the 6th, 2018, murders continue unabated. He cannot hide from the fact that he is responsible for setting the policy framework for national security. He is not, the minister is not operational. He's policy that will inform the operations by the staff in the Ministry of National Security. Our Minister of National Security cannot conflate policy and operational considerations. He must acknowledge that he has to coordinate, integrate, and synergize the efforts of many diverse crime-fighting institutions under his watch, including the Trinidad and Tobago Coast Guard. It is said that we have enough marine assets to lock down our borders. All that is needed is our resources and a policy framework for them to operate optimally. He has to integrate the Trinidad and Tobago Prison Service, the Immigration Department, the Trinidad and Tobago Fire Service, and the Trinidad and Tobago Defense Force. And while we're at it, the minister must tell us why the 2018 food allocation for the Trinidad and Tobago Regiment was $17 million. But approximately $6.5 million less was spent. So we had an allocation of 17 million and 6.5 million remain unspent. But we hear reports. Our soldiers are reportedly being fed pancakes and chana and rice and beans for lunch with no meals. However, the allocation for the head office...
Could you give your source, please?
I will give the source. I will own it. I'm sure about it. And in fact, I think the Minister of National Security will know about these reports. The former minister.
Remember saying he misled the House when he quoted that they were only getting chana and pancakes?
No. It was reported in the news.
Members, again, members, we all know the procedures and the standing order. Once it is that you cannot provide the source, you will take ownership of what you are saying. Right, member?
I take ownership. I do not. I speak. My words, I live by my words.
Yes, that's right, man. Sound like a man.
You're a man of honor.
I'm a man of honor.
We can trust you.
Proceed.
Dignity.
Proceed.
Yes, sir.
Members, silence.
Yes, our soldiers are reportedly being fed pancakes and chana and rice. And beans, chana and rice, and rice and beans for lunch with no meat. However, the head office, $2 million was allocated, and every last cent was spent. So it seems to be, not saying, just asking the question, it seems to be one rule for the rank and file and another rule for others. I have some other questions for the uncharacteristically subdued Minister of National Security. What, pray tell, is the status of the Border Protection Agency? They promise that year in, year out. This is critical to protecting our borders. And they can't get away with talking about OPVs. You've been here for 3 years and you're supposed to deliver. But we live in San Fernando and every fourth person is a Venezuelan. And we'll wake up one day and realize we have lost our country. Is this a PNM way of gathering votes? I'm only asking. Tell us, second question, tell us about the Personal Identification Secure Comparison System, PICES. And I want Port of Spain South to know I could pronounce PICES, that you have not implemented. Why have you not implemented it? Tell us, what is the status of the system for electronic monitoring that government has been promising this country for the past 3 years. We note, Mr. Deputy Speaker, we note 6 million allocated in 2018 for the establishment of an electronic monitoring program. But guess what? Only 500,000 spent. 6 million allocated, 500,000 spent. And in the 2019, they have now allocated $10.7 million. So they allocate and don't spend. Tell us anything about the offender management program that was promised in the last budget. Offender management program. They come and they talk ideas like they read books, you know, and they get an idea. They get an idea and they catch a vaps and they come and tell us, hoping we'll forget. Right. Mr. Deputy Speaker, soldiers gripe over diet. The story is by Nalini Silal, and it's February 23rd, March 2018. When I tell you what, the member for St. Joseph, when I speak here, I speak the truth. I am no longer a PNM. I speak the truth. I've seen the lights, and I've gone to the promised land, and I will never return. Never return. What improvements have you made to the witness protection program? What, tell us, what? What improvements have you made to improve the efficiency? What improvements have you made to improve the efficiency in the Forensic Science Center? Mr. Deputy Speaker, 1 million allocated in the development program for institutional strengthening of the Forensic Science Center. None spent. And they put 1 million in 2019. This is a joke. This is not serious governance. The upgrade of the automatic fingerprint identification system, the AFIS, for the Immigration Department. 1 million allocated in the development program, nothing spent, and they come here in this budget and allocate another $1 million in 2019. The answer to each of these questions is nothing has been done. This is a government that does not perform. This is a government that comes and tells us to be determined. And while we're at it, tell us whether we have a properly functioning gang unit in the Trinidad and Tobago police service. As I understand it, no, they call it gang units. As I understand it, gang squads in the United States and elsewhere have officers who know everything about gang members and gang leaders in their precincts. They know everything about gang members, gang leaders in their precincts, even monitoring their social media platforms. And if he wants the source, if the member for St. Joseph wants the source, it's www.nyc.gov/site/NYPD. They have files. They have files on each gang member, the date of recruitment, his function and his function and rank in the gang. They know the territorial boundaries and actions being contemplated by gangs. If we have a properly functioning gang unit, why have no arrests been made since the passage of the anti-gang legislation? You see, they come and fool us here in this parliament. I'm reading the Minister of National Security. In the anti-gang debate, he told this country, hear what he told them, I quote, "This is legislation that Trinidad and Tobago Police Service and other law enforcement agencies are screaming, begging, and pleading with us to bring to Parliament." One would have thought that they would have had the information so that when the legislation is proclaimed, immediately they go, based on the information from the gang units, and they get spring into action. But this government does not realize that at some stage they have to perform. Old talk could only carry you so far. And pray tell us, under the PSIP, the Trinidad and Tobago Coast Guard spent $6 million on Hartscourt base, Stourbals Bay and Chaguaramas heliport. And not a cent on Galeota and Cedros base, where we are inundated with refugees. I have been to Cedros, and I'm looking for a Coast Guard vessel. I could see the Venezuelan Coast Guard, and I can't see our vessels. In fact, the last Coast Guard vessel I saw was a U.S. Coast Guard vessel in Miami. We were in a cruise, and they're following our boat. I see one parked up here. Why do they not have this in Cedros? The government has a questionable history of allocating monies in national budgets and not spending. Allocate and not spend. I'll give you about 20. The Immigration Detention Center was allocated $5 million in 2018 for upgrades. Guess what? Only 2.5 million spent. And at the same time, we do not have an immigration or refugee policy. Why 1 million allocated in 2018 for refurbishment for the youth training center? Not a cent spent. And we come back this year in response to San Fernando West. You come back this year and put $1 million. So you can't tell me it was finished in the year. Because you know they feel we're not bright. You know they alone went to secondary school and they passed to their first choice. Upgrade of Carrera Island Prison at 1.5 million for 2018 and nothing spent. And now estimate $1 million in 2019. Oh Lord, it is easy to take. My government of incompetence. Incompetence. I wouldn't say that I'm ashamed to be a citizen. I wouldn't say that.
Mr. Deputy Speaker, this insult to the UNC government, I think is not necessary, Prime Minister. Members talking about his government of incompetence.
Members, proceed.
The member for
Yes, I said proceed.
I'm proceeding. I am proceeding.
Listen, member, I said proceed.
Improvement work for fire service building at 2 million, yet nothing spent for stations which need immediate refurbishment. I live in San Fernando. The Monrepo fire station nearly burned down. That's right. And they have $2 million for refurbishment, not a cent. These days they don't have cent. Not a penny spent. Incompetence. 2 million for computerization of the National Security Head Office and only 1 million spent. However, this time, 1 million had been allocated. But yet there's need for all these fancy body cameras, laptops, tablets for police. And the head office is supposed to integrate and get that information. What happened? They don't understand that this is an all-of-government integrated approach. You have police waiting in the head office. You can't assess the data, and etc. 31.8 million allocated.
Yeah, your initial minutes have expired. You have an additional 10. Care to proceed?
Yes, sir. 31.8 million in Forensic Science Center, only 18 spent. Police youth clubs, critical to stop the pipeline of young people. 6 million, only 3 million spent. 2017, 251 million spent on the National Operations Center. I thought they'd close it down. And if they'd close it down, why in 2018 they spent 53 million? And why allocate a mere 10 million for the center in 2019 when they talk about this Operations Center or Command Center, the new name that they have rechristened? And why 82 million allocated in the development program for the prison service and the immigration department and only 56 spent? They talk, they allocate money, they spend nothing and hope we do not see. But facts are stubborn things, Mr. Deputy Speaker. They don't go away. I'll tell you what a UNC government would do. Under UNC government, unlike the PNM, we will make performance-based, quantitative, time-based promises in national security. We promise, and I'm speaking to Trinidad and Tobago. We promise we will put measures in place to reduce the murder rate by 10% annually and serious crime by a similar percent. We will reduce crime. Secondly, we will improve crime detection rates in the first 3 years to 55%, increasing thereafter by 5% annually until we arrive at acceptable rate in accord with global best practices. We will reduce prison crowding, especially in remand yard, by 10% annually, beginning 2022, when a year after we return to office, to to bring peace and goodwill to Trinidad and Tobago. We will enhance community policing by insisting that newly recruited municipal and local police visit every home on a rotational basis at least once per year. The Forensic Science Center will complete all urgent forensic examinations in accord with global best practices. This will be achieved within 3 years. The Forensic Science Center will be properly resourced to achieve this goal. Private institutions will be used to help to clear the existing backlog. The opposition leader has already spoken about the introduction of Community and Village Coordination Officers Program, whereby police officers will walk and interact with community members. This will serve the purposes not only of intelligence gathering and crime detection, but also for building trust with communities. We will allocate part of the UWI campus for quality and enhanced training of the protective services. Certificate, diploma, and degree courses will be offered. We will ensure that those before the courts will receive swift justice. 9, we will improve police and fire units' response time in respect of calls for urgent attention. In respect of police, it will be 30 minutes in the first instance. 10, we will invest in the people and the community. By community involvement, we build the nation. We will have properly functioning gang units that will deal frontally with gang recruitment, membership suppression issues, and gang elimination. We will have a payroll system. Special legislation will be enacted to bring into existence a payroll system in the prison system. And first-time legislation will be enacted to reduce sentences of a person who assists law enforcement in the apprehension of certain kinds of criminals. Madam Speaker.
Silence.
Mr. Deputy Speaker, sorry. We can see under this PLM administration, and especially under this Minister of National Security, there is no hope for the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago. It is a case of every man for himself and devil take the hindmost. We continue to constantly look over our shoulders, thanking God for every day we remain alive. This minister, by qualifications, experience, training, is not up to the task of making Trinidad and Tobago a place of which we can be justly proud and where we can raise our families in peace and prosperity. I turn to Naparima constituency. You may be aware of the meetings we held. The first issue there is rising poverty by over 1,000 ex-Caroni workers from Naparima, still waiting on their promised parcel of land. And I'm talking to the workers of Petrotrin. Do not take promises by this PNM for granted. Some of them have been waiting 15 years. 50. High unemployment, lack of water supply, issues with security of tenure involving 40 farmers from Irie Village Food Crop Association. Threats by the now mothball Petrotrin to break down the homes of 50 families and a church, the Church of God and Prophecy, notwithstanding the fact that most of these residents have been occupying their parcel of land for over 30 years. Deplorable roadways. Only 4 million has been allocated to the Princestown Regional Corporation for over 700 secondary roads and agricultural access traces throughout Naparima, Princestown, and Maruga Tableland, which is another problem raised. 6,000 per road, when once landslip can cost $1 million. But 15 million, and I have no problems with Tobago, they get all they should get, but we should be treated equally too. You can't give 4 million for 150,000 citizens in Trinidad. And you give, how much for Tobago? You give 15 million for 55,000. Where's the equity? And that's all we ask. We don't say you should get less. We should say we should get more. And I beg this government, run something for Naparima. Yeah, run something. We're suffering. 2 billion for sandals and not a cent for Garth Road. I must talk about Garth Road, the infamous Garth Road. Described by Councillor Vashti Suku, the councillor for Ben Lomond, Hadbargen, Williamsville, and residents, as the worst road in Trinidad and Tobago, with 50 landslides and 250 potholes. Oh Lord, help us in Naparima. A road 3 miles long. 3 miles long. With 250 potholes, and I drove on that road. I drove on that road. The minister drove on that road. He has promised. Fairness to the minister, he promised this morning to do all in his power to assist, and I take him at his word. So it is the Bagpo East and West Secondary Schools have problems from the recent earthquakes, and parents had to contribute financially to convert the auditorium to host classes. People have to dip in their pocket, these poor people, dip in about 200 per parents, I understand, to help this government, help them so that the children could get an education. Inadequate healthcare system, inadequate healthcare at the Lengua Health Facility, short of pharmaceuticals, open from 8 to 4. Under us, it was open from 8 to 9 in the night. But the P&M cut it down. And the Rochard Douglas is only open half day.
You have 2 more minutes.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So I want to tell the Minister of National Security. There's a thing I have about patriotism. Yeah, what is patriotism? It is not about wearing a red, white, and black tie. It is not about being a P&M member. It is not about accusing others about being unpatriotic. It's not about attending national award ceremony. It is about unquestioned allegiance to the interests of one's country. Is it patriotic to remain in a job for which you lack experience, qualifications, and training? Is it patriotic to remain in a job, and if in 64 days of my appointment there were 75 murders, 76 murders, 76 of my fellow citizens dead, if I were patriotic, I would resign. I call on the Minister of National Security to do the patriotic thing and resign. So, and put somebody in the job who can handle the national security mandate.
Silence.
So that we can all remain safe. Because all of us on this side, we want to live. The citizens of Trinidad and Tobago want to live. And clearly you cannot provide for their safety and security. Mr. Deputy Speaker. Mr. Deputy Speaker.
You will have your opportunity.
Mr. Deputy, you can see. Is it
Standing order 48-6.
Mr. Deputy Speaker, you can see that they're on.
Member. Okay. 48-6.
Yes, Mr.
What
Deputy
aspect of it?
The member for Naparima is imputing improper motives against the Minister of National Security, suggesting that he killed the people. Well, then why should
Members. I heard you. Member. Okay, all right. Right. Standing order 48-6.
Speaker? Thank you very much, Mr. Deputy Speaker. My position is, in Standing Order 48-6, the member is saying that a number of citizens died, and he's saying that the Minister of National Security should react. So the question is, who killed them? And who made the borders porous? That's my question.
Thank you. Members, member for Naparima. All right, I heard your statement. I heard the standing order that is referenced, and I'd like you to rephrase it. I would like you to rephrase it.
Under the watch of this Minister of National Security, we have a plethora and 76 murders since he came. And I think since he's unable to deal with crime, he should resign forthwith.
I will recognize the member for San Fernando West. San Fernando.
I thank you, Mr. Deputy Speaker, for recognizing me and for the opportunity to enter into this debate. This is my fourth debate, Mr. Deputy Speaker.
Oh yes.
On behalf of the fellow constituents, my fellow constituents of San Fernando East. Which ministry is it? Mr. Deputy Speaker.
Standing Order 53 holds when the member is speaking, there's supposed to be silence. Proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Speaker. I didn't know my contribution could excite members of the opposite side that much. But, Mr. Deputy Speaker, as I was saying, this is my fourth budget debate on behalf of the constituents of San Fernando East. And I should say, put on the record, Mr. Deputy Speaker, it is truly an honor to represent the people of San Fernando East in this House. And just to reflect on something that the member from Naparima was saying, that there are terrible roads in the constituency of Naparima. But, Mr. Deputy Speaker, the member for Naparima is a constituent of San Fernando East, and he enjoys a very high quality of life in the constituency of San Fernando East because of great representation. Mr. Deputy Speaker, I want to thank my constituents for their support in me. I also want to thank the team at the constituency office, the Office of the Member of Parliament, for their support of me during this time, Mr. Deputy Speaker. Mr. Deputy Speaker, today I also enter this debate with the responsibility for a third ministry, the ever-increasing important Ministry of Tourism. And for that, Mr. Deputy Speaker, I thank the Honorable Prime Minister for the opportunity to serve and for the confidence that he has placed in me to confront and overcome any challenge, Mr. Deputy Speaker, in a short space of time to turn around the Ministry of Tourism. Mr. Deputy Speaker, I also wish to thank the Honorable Prime Minister on behalf of the people of San Fernando East for his fearless and dedicated leadership of Trinidad and Tobago in a very difficult time. Mr. Deputy Speaker, I'd also take this opportunity to place on record my commendation for the Minister of Finance and his team for the management of the economy during, as well, a very turbulent time, and for bringing us to this point in the turnaround where, from 2015 to now, we can breathe all that much easier, Mr. Deputy Speaker. Mr. Deputy Speaker, I also want to congratulate the Minister of Planning and her team for their role in coordinating the development of Trinidad and Tobago and for their input in this budget process. And last, but by no means least, Mr. Deputy Speaker, I wish to thank the member for Tobago West for the very difficult and hard work that she would have put before me in the Ministry of Tourism in taking some very difficult decisions and bringing us to the point where we are in the turnaround of the tourism sector, Mr. Deputy Speaker. Mr. Deputy Speaker, tourism, as I have learned, is a very complex sector, often misunderstood, in which the private sector and other stakeholders invest in creating product, while the government primarily provides a facilitating and enabling environment through the creation of policy, direction of research, awareness, collaboration, regulation, and the offer of incentives to encourage investment into tourism products. Well, Mr. Deputy Speaker, let me pause here just to reflect on something that the member for Naparima has been saying. He spent a large amount of his contribution speaking about crime, and there was this big song and dance that crime is out of control, and he harped on murders. But, Mr. Deputy Speaker, crime and the erosion of the rule of law didn't happen in the last 3 years. It has been happening for a very long time. And that, too, is a part of the turnaround that the new Minister of National Security and the newly appointed Commissioner of Police are there to enact. The member for Naparima criticized everything. He was the prophet of doom and gloom. He had all the answers now. But let me remind the member from Naparima of a program called Live Sport and a former minister called Anil Roberts and the criminals that that program cultivated under the United National Congress. And why didn't they have the cure for all the ills between the time 2010 to 2015? They have all the answers now, Mr. Deputy Speaker. But Mr. Deputy Speaker, I would say through you to the member of Naparima, trust the process. The turnaround is in progress. And lastly, and I mean this most sincerely, Mr. Deputy Speaker, in San Fernando East and in the party, the People's National Movement, we are truly thankful for your departure from the People's National Movement. Mr. Deputy Speaker, I'd also like to touch on something, a misleading statement that was first propagated by the member for Oropouche East, and I see that it has been picked up by the member for Saparia, where they constantly mislead by saying not one house was built since 2015 under this government. But Madam Speaker, I have had the privilege of serving as the Minister of Housing for the past 2 years. And during that time, Madam Speaker, not only did we commit to finish all the housing development started under the People's National Movement regime prior to 2010 and those between 2010 to 2015, but we also were able, having regard to the huge demand for public housing, we were also able to start the River Runs Through project development in Arima. We started 108 units, 84 were completed and distributed. In Bonaire Park, we started 62 units, 12 were completed and distributed. In Gomez Trace in Arima, 71 units. Gomez Trace in Maruga, 71 units were started, 32 completed. And this is in under 2 years, Madam Speaker. In Mount Hope, 160 started. Our first PPP program, and in December, the first tower will be completed. Madam Speaker, in Corinth, 200 were started, and those are scheduled to be completed in 2019. And Madam Speaker, the member for Point Fortin will comprehensively report on all the matters taking place under the Ministry of Housing. And Madam Speaker, I want to say something to my good friend from Chaguanas East. It is almost nauseating to continue to hear about Singapore, 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 Singapore. No, please. Singapore is a place, yes, to be admired.
It's a command society.
But Singapore has a very weak opposition, if any opposition at all. And just like Dubai and China, in Singapore, you can plan for 5 and 10 and 15 and 20 years. Singapore does not have a strong opposition, and they certainly don't have an opposition the quality of the United National Congress, Madam Speaker. They do not have that. Madam Speaker, Madam Speaker, on assuming office in 2015, we faced the consequences of a significant drop in energy prices and the associated fall in our foreign exchange earning levels and the recessionary conditions that we confronted. What we immediately recognized was the urgency to be placed on transforming the economy. And Madam Speaker, we recognized that to diversify the economy, tourism was one of those sectors that could be a major driver and a major foreign exchange earner. And Madam Speaker, to speak to the value of tourism worldwide, the United Nations World Tourism Organization reports that worldwide international tourist arrivals recorded its 7th consecutive year of above average growth to a total of 1.3 billion travelers in 2017. And the forecast was that international tourist arrivals are expected to continue to grow by 4% annually for total receipts of $1.3 billion US. Madam Speaker, here in the Caribbean, the CTO reports that Caribbean tourism experienced growth to just under 30 million visits in 2016. And the gross expenditure by all visitors to the Caribbean was estimated at $36 billion US. Madam Speaker, suffice it to say, in Trinidad and Tobago, we need a piece of that market. So, Madam Speaker, going back to when we entered government in 2015, and in light of the increasingly urgent need to escape our reliance on the energy sector and to fight for increased market share of the travelers in the Caribbean region, the ministry engaged in a review of the implementation arm at the ministry, which is the Tourism Development Company, or the TDC. And that review, Madam Speaker, was done so as to recommend options for improving the institutional structure and the operations in a manner that would assist the company in achieving greater success, because we intend to rely on the tourism sector ever so more. So, Madam Speaker, the review was done. And what the review uncovered were considerable shortcomings at the TDC. Madam Speaker, the review uncovered that the organization had lost its focus with regard to its mission and primary responsibilities in tourism marketing, product development, and destination management. The organization was generally found to be grossly underperforming and lacking in strategic vision and direction, and the employees at the organization were very demotivated and cited poor leadership as the reason. And in citing poor leadership, Madam Speaker, between the years 2010 to 2015, there were 4 ministers of tourism assigned. And each minister proposed a different policy direction for tourism. So they were unable to move. They were unable to follow any clear and coherent path in tourism. And between 2010 and 2015, there were 4 different boards of directors. And each of those boards of directors proposed different priorities. And all of this led to a very demotivated staff, a staff in stasis. There was a failure of leadership of the board of directors and the minister to act in a timely manner to fill the vacancies. Very important vacancies remain unfulfilled. Those of the general manager of marketing and product development for years. The company itself was in a state of paralysis. Another significant shortcoming, Madam Speaker, was where overseas marketing was concerned. Considerable sums of monies were spent to overseas marketers during the period of time, and there was no measurement. No measurement, no performance targets, no objectives set by the TDC for these reps. And the review discovered, Madam Speaker, that notwithstanding large amounts of money spent on overseas marketing, arrivals during the period were stagnant or in decline. Madam Speaker, it was also reported that there was a significant failure to work with the stakeholders in the tourism industry, particularly the THA, Tobago House of Assembly. And this led to a very negative perception of the TDC, which had adversely affected its relationship with all its partners. In light of all these shortcomings found, Madam Speaker, it was determined that the TDC just simply could not be saved. The brand had been so irreparably damaged as a result of poor leadership and organization culture and practices that the organization could not be saved by a mere rebranding of the organization. So in order to execute and deliver on the now urgent and increasingly important mandate, the TDC was dissolved. And as you are aware, Madam Speaker, 2 new destination management and marketing companies were created in its place. One destination management and marketing company was created to manage Destination Trinidad, One was created to manage Destination Tobago, and that was placed under the responsibility and remit of the Tobago House of Assembly. And Madam Speaker, the decision to create the two separate destination marketing companies and management companies was the acceptance of a decision that was rejected since 1996, finally accepted, that the destinations are completely distinct. Tobago is a sun, sea, and sand, a leisure destination with associated and supporting products. Meanwhile, Trinidad, with its city of Port of Spain, was a conventions and meeting city destination with supporting diverse products, the form of culture and heritage festivals. Yes, and we needed two entities to do that. Because when you're marketing, you are trying to capture the mind of the customer. And when the mind of the customer, when in the mind of the customer, you see Trinidad and Tobago as a Caribbean destination, the customer confusion is created in the mind. Because Trinidad and Tobago is not the traditional Caribbean destination. They're totally separate. It's two islands. And that is the sense in it, member for Shogunas West. And Madam Speaker, another recommendation coming out of the review was the recognition for more regulated tourism industry, a move away from the voluntary adherence of quality standards, Madam Speaker. A recommendation was made for legislation. The Trinidad and Tobago Regulatory and Licensing Authority, which would have responsibility for mandatory quality standards in all segments of tourism and hospitality. And Madam Speaker, we are presently working on the policy and draft legislation. Madam Speaker, the member for Tobago East spoke on the Tobago Tourism Agency, and I can report that under Secretary Nadine Stewart-Phillips, Tobago Tourism is in good hands, as well as the chairman of the Tobago Tourism Agency, Dr. Shilma Roberts. And the member for Tobago East would have given a report on all the happenings in Tobago with respect to the Tobago Tourism Agency. Madam Speaker, with respect to development in Tobago, the Minister of Finance in the budget mentioned one of the game changers, that is the Sandals and Beaches Golden Grove Tobago project, along with a newly constructed airport terminal building at ANR Airport in Tobago. And Madam Speaker, the project, as announced, will be owned by the people of Trinidad and Tobago and be operated by one of the top Caribbean hotel brands, the award-winning Sandals Resorts International. The resort will have approximately 1,000 high-quality rooms and guarantees to cause a significant stimulus to the economy of Tobago. Madam Speaker, when I hear about Sandals, there's an analogy that comes to my mind. And Madam Speaker, that is the analogy of an anchor tenant in a shopping mall. Madam Speaker, in the development of shopping malls, one of the first things that the developer does, Madam Speaker, is to try and find a number of anchor tenants to take up prime spots in that mall at very attractive rates. Anchor tenants are usually those prestigious brands whose name recognition attracts other tenants and shoppers, increasing the footfall of shoppers, like, for example, Madam Speaker, an Apple store in a mall in the United States. Or, Madam Speaker, think about what Disney World is to the city of Orlando. And Madam Speaker, I don't think anybody would go to Orlando, or Orlando will not have the amount of tourists they have had it not been for Disney World in Orlando. And Disney World is like an anchor tenant, that anchor project in Orlando that attracts all the tourists. So, Madam Speaker, in the case of the Sandals Hotel, the hotel will be the anchor tenant for the island of Tobago. And Madam Speaker, the visitors to the island of Tobago will certainly increase. The numbers, the visitors will certainly be increased, Madam Speaker, on account of the hotel's brand recognition, the quality, and the aggressive marketing strategy that the hotel does, Madam Speaker, around the Caribbean. Madam Speaker, with the project of sandals coming to Tobago, Madam Speaker, it will also increase exposure to the island. And that exposure, Madam Speaker, will encourage more hotels and more tourism operators to invest in Tobago once the world has a chance to see the raw beauty, the raw untouched beauty that is Tobago. Because we know that Tobago, in its tourism sector, is very much undeveloped at this time. And Madam Speaker, the member for Barataria San Juan described a visit to the Sandals property, where he said that from the time he landed at the airport, he went into a line and a Sandals vehicle picked him up, and the Sandals vehicle dropped him off. He didn't leave the hotel, and the Sandals vehicle then dropped him back to the airport. And Madam Speaker, that is not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing. It is because the brand controls its value chain and all the activities in its value chain, Madam Speaker. They don't leave, Madam Speaker, what they don't do is they don't leave to chance a taxi driver creating a negative experience for a visitor coming to the island, or a tour operator who does not meet their very high quality standards, giving or making a negative experience for that visitor. That is the quality of the brand that they try to cultivate, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, the inclusion of Sandals in Tobago would mean that the competing hotels in Tobago, Madam Speaker, on account of the increased visitors or visitorship, would have to reinvest in upgrading their plant to compete. And Madam Speaker, we've had a serious problem with the hotels in Tobago not taking those opportunities to ensure high quality room stock and increasing their plant, Madam Speaker. Opportunities will also be created for service and goods providers, for business with Sandals, not to mention job creation. Madam Speaker, this is true stimulus. With respect to the terminal building, Madam Speaker, this will complement that stimulus and create and add value to Tobago's tourism product, putting it on equal footing with its Caribbean counterparts. Madam Speaker, this is great news for Tobago. Madam Speaker, with respect to the Tourism Trinidad Limited, that is the destination management and marketing company for Trinidad. Madam Speaker, the board was appointed in October of 2017 and has been working diligently to get this startup running at full pace. But Madam Speaker, there have been some delays in operationalization. The first recruitment exercise that was conducted, Madam Speaker, did not yield the quality of candidates that we expected, and the board therefore had to conduct a new recruitment exercise. And Madam Speaker, we expect to announce the executive management, the recruitment of the executive managers, Madam Speaker, by the end of November in this year. And Madam Speaker, I would be the first to admit that these delays have been inconvenient to the tourism sector and to our tourism stakeholders. And I thank those stakeholders, Madam Speaker, for their patience. But it is absolutely necessary, Madam Speaker, given the importance of the task ahead, that we carefully select the best persons to lead and coordinate the tourism industry here in Trinidad, Madam Speaker. Immediately on appointing the executive managers, Madam Speaker, the management will begin to execute immediately. They will have to immediately begin the strategic planning process in alignment with the new strategic direction. And at the same time, Madam Speaker, at the same time, having regard to the very important season that is ahead of us, carnival season, they must immediately, Madam Speaker, begin to develop a marketing plan, even if it's just a short-term marketing plan for the carnival season. Madam Speaker, the carnival season represents our highest concentration of visitors for the calendar year and is therefore extremely valuable to all the stakeholders, Madam Speaker, in the tourism sector. There is a lot of exciting work ahead for Tourism Trinidad Limited, and Madam Speaker, I will report to the population on the progress that we would have made. I turn now, Madam Speaker, to the road ahead for Trinidad tourism. Madam Speaker, the strategic direction for Trinidad tourism was created by the Standing Committee for the Strategic Development of Tourism. And the roadmap that came out of that standing committee will be charted by the new destination management company, Tourism Trinidad Limited. Madam Speaker, the roadmap identified several key niche areas where Destination Trinidad had demonstrated competence and a competitive advantage with the potential to generate the most attractive returns. Madam Speaker, this was done following an honest assessment of the destination's offerings and the need to produce a targeted marketing approach based on a detailed understanding of the needs of sophisticated customers. The global tourism industry, Madam Speaker, is now fiercely competitive, and destinations continue to jostle for even greater market share and tourism revenues. Today, Madam Speaker, the new tourist is experienced, independent, quality-conscious, and hard to please. The new tourist expects a unique experience that cannot easily be replicated by competing destinations. And we need to understand what are true unique strengths, our unique selling proposition, Madam Speaker, and those unique strengths that differentiate ourselves from other offerings and position ourselves, our tourism, appropriately to benefit from those strengths and to set us apart. And based on the research, Madam Speaker, based on deliberations of a stakeholder forum, there was agreement that the core niche for the destination would be business, or what is called MICE tourism. MICE standing for meetings, incentives, conventions, and exhibitions, with the supporting niches in events tourism and ecotourism. Madam Speaker, since 2009, there has been some emphasis placed on promoting the country as a MICE destination with the establishment of the Convention Bureau. And Madam Speaker, the island also Trinidad possesses conference facilities in the Southern Caribbean, the best and the largest conference facilities in the south of the Caribbean, giving us a comparative advantage. We also possess a large number of multinationals resident here in Trinidad. Madam Speaker, globally, the MICE sector is poised for vigorous growth. And with a more aggressive marketing campaign for Trinidad, as well as further investments to support the niche, we expect to see growth in this segment in 2020. Madam Speaker, events tourism. Events tourism, what we mean by that, cultural, music festivals, as well as sport tourism. Trinidad continues, as I said before, Madam Speaker, to see peak visitor arrivals around the carnival season, which is our signature event. And the evidence continues to show, Madam Speaker, that Carnival Monday and Tuesday are not the only pull factors in terms of bringing tourists to the destination. There are also a number of parties and other types of events which take place in the weeks leading up to Carnival Monday and Tuesday. And these events, Madam Speaker, must be branded and they must be marketed internationally to attract the visitors in their numbers. Outside of the Carnival season, there are also events that attract tourists, and these must also be properly promoted internationally. Madam Speaker, sport tourist arrivals grew to 6,500 in 2015. And with the opening of the Aquatic Center and the Cycling Velodrome and the Racket Center and the Brian Lara Stadium and other sporting facilities across the country, there would be, in the coming years, Madam Speaker, a concerted marketing push by the destination marketing company for the hosting of regional and international sporting events. And I intend to work with the member for Tobago West to bring those events to fruition, Madam Speaker. And Madam Speaker, ecotourism, the last niche, which is a small niche, Madam Speaker, but it is important because the evidence shows that while visitors come to Trinidad for one reason or the other, they also took part in some sort of ecotourism activity. And the ecotourism niche demonstrated that it does really well to support the other niches. Madam Speaker, let me now turn to the sites and attractions. As you're aware, Madam Speaker, consequent on the dissolution of the TDC, there were 5 sites formerly managed by the TDC that were passed to the Ministry of Tourism under the Ministry of Tourism's responsibility. The Maracas Beach Facility, the Las Cuevas Beach Facility, the Labre Pitch Lake, the Manzanilla Beach Facility, and the Vestini Beach Facility. Madam Speaker, the Ministry now discharges the responsibility under the PSIP, under the Sites and Attractions vote. And recently, Madam Speaker, the Ministry also engaged UDICOT to be the implementing agency with respect to the maintenance and upgrade of these sites and attractions, as they are a state enterprise with a little more flexibility and speed to react to maintenance issues on a timely basis. The Maracas Beach Facility Improvement Project. Madam Speaker, it is important to report to the population on the work presently taking place at the Maracas Beach Facility. Maracas Beach is our most popular beach in Trinidad, Madam Speaker, and sees about 7,000 visitors per week. And the daily activities there at Maracas Beach significantly contributes to the local economy at Maracas. The importance of the Maracas Beach to the people of Trinidad and Tobago, Madam Speaker, Trinidad in particular, cannot be underscored. And government recognizes the importance and the need to provide and maintain a beach facility that is aesthetically pleasing, clean, safe, and effectively managed to high international standards. In 2016, Madam Speaker, Cabinet agreed to a phase 1 of an amended and rescoped Maracas Beach Facility Improvement Project into 3 packages for around 60 million. And Madam Speaker, that is a project that we inherited. Madam Speaker, under the first package, roadworks, car park, and civil works, this was done under the Ministry of Works through the Pure Unit. And those works, I can report, are now completed, Madam Speaker. The road is now widened, and the car park has been expanded. The bottleneck that used to occur at the Maracas Beach Facility, Madam Speaker, is no more, and there is a more efficient traffic management system there. And a cheaper cost, Madam Speaker. With respect to the building works, Madam Speaker, work is still ongoing, but I can report that 11 vending booths were completed, and 18 vendors, Madam Speaker, were allocated to those vending booths to continue vending and their livelihood at the Maracas Beach Facility. Work continues with respect to replacing some aging electrical and the completion of some public restrooms. With respect to the sewer treatment plant, and the member for Princestown commented on that, and I could report to the member for Princestown as well to the country. The new sewer treatment plant will be completed in December. So, between now and December, there will still be some associated noxious smells and so on with respect to sewage, Madam Speaker. But in December, that will be a thing of the past. The old sewer treatment plant, which was inefficient, will be decommissioned, and the new sewer treatment plant with added capacity and an efficient system will be commissioned, Madam Speaker. With respect to maintenance at the Maracas Beach Facility, Madam Speaker, During the phase 1 construction at the Ministry of Tourism, I would have received several complaints that public order broke down at the Maracas Beach, and a lot of the beachgoers would have complained about the beach chair issue, and about the general lack of maintenance at the Maracas Beach. Madam Speaker, I agree that this situation is untenable. And notwithstanding Maracas Beach still being a construction site, because construction works are still subsisting, we recognize that the beach should still be maintained at an appropriate standard and allow for the continued use by beachgoers. Madam Speaker, we also recognize that beachgoers should be free from a harassment from hustlers and hawkers, free from the loud music that disturbs the peace and enjoyment. And in that respect, Madam Speaker, we have given the mandate to UDICOT to provide the facilities management at the Maracas Beach facility. And UDICOT's mandate, Madam Speaker, will be to administer and to augment where necessary the contracts for security, garbage removal, sanitation, landscaping, and they will also ensure that the rules and regulations that are set for the beach use will be followed. And Madam Speaker, it is our expectation that in a very short space of time, Maracas Beach will return to the safe and aesthetically pleasing facility of international standards. Madam Speaker, but we are not done yet in upgrading Maracas Beach facility. In this upcoming fiscal, we intend to embark on a phase 2 of the upgrading works in terms of landscaping, signage, and to soften the impact of the concrete structures that are on the beach right now. And we will ensure, Madam Speaker, at the end of the next fiscal year, that the Maracas Beach facility returns to a first-class tourism product at a globally accepted standard. Madam Speaker, Las Cuevas, over the last fiscal, emergency works were carried out on their sewer treatment plant that was in need of maintenance. And in this upcoming fiscal, comprehensive refurbishment of the restaurant, general painting of the facility, refurbishment of the washroom, installation of additional lights, CCTV, as well as a supplemental car park will be constructed. At the Manzanilla Beach facility, work was done to upgrade the existing restaurant and the installation of security lights and CCTV throughout the site. In this upcoming fiscal, works will be done to the existing drainage system, paving of the car park, repairs to the sewer treatment plant, and general painting works at the site. At the Vesini Beach facility, one of the more popular beaches along the southern peninsula, Madam Speaker, upgrading works were done to the existing restaurant, and CCTV and additional lighting was installed throughout the site. Upcoming works for fiscal 2019 include repaving the car park and repairs to the sewer treatment plant. At the Labre Pitch Lake, one of the world's natural wonders, work was done to install CCTV and lighting throughout the site, and upcoming works in this fiscal include the replacement of flooring to the museum and general refurbishment and improved landscaping around the site. I now turn to the incentives, Madam Speaker. Under the Tourism Development Act, the ministry offers incentives for the development and investment into tourism products, namely tourism accommodation, ancillary facilities, tourism transportation services. And the benefits to be derived, Madam Speaker, from these incentives include customs duties exemptions for items imported, for approved tourism products, exemption from motor vehicle taxes and duties for vehicles imported for tourism transport operators, tax exemptions approved by the Ministry of Finance for large approved tourism products. Madam Speaker, for the period October 1, 2017 to September 30th, 2018, the Ministry of Tourism received and evaluated applications for tourism incentives across Trinidad and Tobago. In the accommodation sector, Madam Speaker, we approved incentives for the Regent Star Hotel as well as the Hilton Hotel, Madam Speaker. And there was also a new accommodation project, Madam Speaker. Approval was granted for the investment into and purchase and renovation of the hotel, formerly known as the Carlton Savannah, to be recognized as a tourism product. Madam Speaker, that investment is estimated at $284 million. In doing so, government recognized the need to import items for this project and approved the amount of $35 million of items to be imported, and this is estimated to cost government in terms of incentives $7 million, Madam Speaker. Approval was also granted to ancillary tourism projects, which included the Radical Sports Limited of Tobago and the Five Island Water and Amusement Park. For Radical Sports, Madam Speaker, approval was granted to import items for the company in the amount of $48,000. For the Five Island Water and Amusement Park, approval has been granted for the importation of items to the tune of $14 million, Madam Speaker. I turn now to the Government Loan Guarantee Program, another incentive offered, Madam Speaker. This is done through the Ministry of Finance, and the aim of this program is to assist tourism businesses in Tobago where there is a downturn in the tourism economy, making loan financing difficult. And in fiscal 2018, 2 applications were approved and guarantees given to the value of $10.2 million. Madam Speaker, with respect to arrivals, aggregated international arrivals inclusive of air and cruise visitors for the period January to July 2018 was 322,955, an increase of 17% over the corresponding period last year. Air arrivals, there was a decrease of 4% over the last period, but in cruise arrivals, Madam Speaker, there was an increase from 34,495 in 2016 to 91,889 in 2018, Madam Speaker. With respect to the occupancy rate for the period at mid-2018 was approximately 60% at hotels. And Madam Speaker, I really report these figures simply just to put them on the record, because as far as we are concerned, these figures are clearly unsatisfactory. The declines are due in part to the transition, Madam Speaker, from the TDC to the new Destination Management and Marketing Company. And the fact is that over the past year, there was simply no direct marketing of the destination done during that fiscal year. The Ministry of Tourism does not do international destination marketing and promotion. It simply isn't equipped to do it. There is no capacity to do it, and it requires a specific skill set. But Madam Speaker, I anticipate a turnaround in this in the upcoming fiscal year with the operationalization of Tourism Trinidad Limited, where our marketing efforts will be more direct and more strategic, and we will see an invigoration in our traditional source markets. Before I conclude, Madam Speaker, I want to turn to the constituency of San Fernando East and the works that were conducted in that constituency over the past fiscal. Madam Speaker, I again wish to thank those members, the team at the constituency office, who really go above and beyond the call of duty to ensure that the constituents of San Fernando East are served, and the MP of San Fernando East is also assisted in that service. Madam Speaker, I wish to thank the Minister of Public Utilities. Over the last fiscal, we had the illumination of the Mutu Recreation Grounds in Marabella. I wish to thank the Minister of Works and Transport, Madam Speaker. We had the Manahambre Road repaired from the St. Madeleine Police Station to current settlement. I'm sure the member for Oropuch East would have benefited from that road repair. Madam Speaker, the Manahambre Road from St. Clements Junction was also repaired. Naparima Mayara Road, Royal Road, from the Monripo roundabout to Royal Road, Madam Speaker, the road was repaired. San Fernando bypass, heading north from Scott Street.
Honourable Member for San Fernando East, the original speaking time is now spent. You're entitled to 10 more minutes to wind up your presentation.
I'd be grateful, Madam Speaker.
Please proceed.
Thank you. Madam Speaker, Sepero Road from Balize Avenue to Corinth Road. The road was repaired.
What avenue is that?
Madam Speaker, from Forest Avenue to Corinth Junction, Balbosa Drive in Orchid Gardens. Madam Speaker, in Taradale, Green Hill Avenue, Grange Street, Tamana Drive, Aripo Avenue, Sion Drive Extension, and Hellshire Avenue, Madam Speaker. All those roads were repaired, and I thank the Minister of Works and Transport, Madam Speaker, on behalf of the constituents of San Fernando East. And Madam Speaker, I thank the member for St. Anne's East for the Pleasantville Community Center that was recently refurbished and reopened, and I thank her for continuing the development of the Taradale Community Center, Madam Speaker. And Madam Speaker, I thank the member for Point Fortin for continuing the housing development works being done right now in Corinth. Thank you on behalf of the people of San Fernando East. So, Madam Speaker, in conclusion, the Ministry of Tourism will continue to play its role to develop and ensure that the tourism sector continues to be economically viable and continue to contribute positively to this country's GDP, to economic growth, competitiveness, and innovation. And to ensure that the sector continues to contribute, Madam Speaker, the Ministry has set a number of short-term goals to be pursued and achieved in 2020. Madam Speaker, we aim to increase air arrivals to 500,000 by 2020. And to do this, we will seek increased marketing and market share in our traditional source markets and seek out new markets. We will aim, Madam Speaker, to increase tourism revenues by 25% by doing more to help develop and refine our tourism products, our packaged offerings, and our goods and services. We aim to increase tourism awareness, Madam Speaker, so that all citizens, particularly the participants in the tourism industry, understand the important role that the ministry and the tourism sector plays in the economy of Trinidad and Tobago. We aim to encourage the investment in tourism plant, particularly in the area of quality room stock. We aim to improve the mechanism and quality of data collection and analysis so that there could be improved and faster decision-making in the tourism sector. And we intend to master the use of new media and technology in marketing and promotion so as to more effectively market the destinations. Madam Speaker, over the next 2 years, I expect a turnaround in the tourism sector. And Madam Speaker, I'm happy to preside over the Ministry of Tourism that will ensure that that turnaround occurs. Madam Speaker, it is always a pleasure to speak before you. Thank you.
Honourable members, I believe now is a convenient time to take the suspension. This House is now suspended. We shall resume at 6:05.